What is up, Fins fam? How is everybody doing? The last 30 seconds have been a bit scurrying around here. The camera was out and not wanting to cooperate, so we had to restart it. I say we, I guess I got a mouse in my pocket. It's me here by myself today. Anyway, so good to see you guys. We're going on something like 2 weeks straight. We're on a roll. Guys, I'm so glad you could join me. It's so good to talk to you guys each and every week. So this week, no guest, you've got me. We're going to talk about all things fence. Also, kind of build up to our conversation next week with Sam Williams, the president of the American Fence Association. We've got an action-packed week coming up. We're packing up for social media marketing world. We're leaving for the show tomorrow, midday tomorrow. So big day. First thing, we're going to start doing a little housekeeping in the beginning of the show because what in the world? All right, let me sort out the camera. And we're back. Small technical difficulties. The camera is not wanting to cooperate today. So, broadcast might be shorter than usual. We'll see. We'll play it all by ear to keep in mind. Keep in mind, I'm a fence guy trying to figure out technology. Most of the time it works. Sometimes it doesn't. What is going on with this? Oh, I'll give you a second. What do you say? What do you say when stuff like this happens? You say, bear with me, I guess, and we'll all get through it. We'll see. So, behind the scenes, the camera's hooked up to a battery charger. Typically, it's hooked up to hard power, but we're packing stuff away. So, we'll see. Here's the thing, Todd. This is supposed to be an upgrade. Go figure, right? So we used to shoot on a Sony A6600. Great camera. We still use it for B-roll, that sort of thing. Things, I don't know, $1,200, something like that. Good camera, but we went for an upgrade. So now we're shooting on a Sony A7S4 R4, A7 R4. Supposedly a massive upgrade in video quality. Kind of been a pain so far, probably because I'm a fence guy trying to do technology. If I were a trained photographer or videographer is probably the better term for that, I would probably know what to do with this increased in technology. But here we are. So maybe this is a life lesson. Upgrades aren't always upgrades. Maybe don't always buy the more expensive gear because sometimes it doesn't work right. All right, guys, back on track, right? So a little bit of housekeeping because I've been told I'm not the best at asking you guys to like the broadcast. If you guys like watching the content, give it a like because Jeremy tells me that this makes it go better online, right? So it helps our organic reach, which is always, always, always appreciated. So like it. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook, like the Joe Everest channel, facebook.com/The Real Joe Everest. There are apparently several, and only two of them are me. Personal page, public page. Anyway, so yeah, and obviously, as always, the live show is sponsored by Stain and Seal Experts. I like these guys a lot. I like all of them. I'm getting ready to say Caleb and Ashley, but I like all of the Stain and Seal family. However, I'm proud to call Caleb and Ashley friends. Use their product before they came on as sponsors, which is important, I think. So let's talk about this. Sponsors on YouTube channels. So I watch other outside of our industry. I watch all the industry podcasts, or watch the podcast, listen to the podcast, are these vlogs? I guess these are vlogs, live channels, YouTube channels, that sort of thing. But outside the industry, so I watch all sorts of randomness, right? So I'm big into watching people on sailboats right now. I don't actually sail. I probably will not ever sail, but I like watching families sail around the world. Kind of interesting to me. I live vicariously through their YouTube channels. But sponsors are kind of a weird thing because a lot of times they'll bring on sponsors, and when you listen to how they talk about them, it's pretty obvious all this is a sponsored post, right? So the brand gave them some money so that they talked about how much they like their VPN service, or, Audible books or whatever. Those are two of the big ones right now, it seems like. But they don't actually use them, right? You don't get the sense that they use them day to day. It's an ad. It's a commercial is what it is. It's a paid commercial. Here at the channel, we're starting to get more people want to sponsor the show, which is fantastic. However, if it's not a brand that I enjoy working with professionally already, then it doesn't make sense, right? To tell you guys, the fans, and the other people that watch the recorded content that I like this brand when I don't. Well, I might, I don't know. But if I don't have any direct experience with them, I don't know if I like them or not. I don't know if the product's great or not. And I don't want to tell you guys it's good and have it not be good. So that's kind of the thing, right? So Jeremy and I are kind of wading through that right now on talking about bringing on partners onto the show that from brands that we know, like, and trust, from, materials that we already use. Nope, that's the wrong one. This one, Stand Still Experts, is a company that we really like working with. Caleb and Ashley's heart is in absolutely the right place. And they show that when they put on the free trainings. Almost 300 people attended this year. They put this thing on completely free. They took probably better part of a week and a half, but by the time you talk about the build up and the tear down, they took a week and a half off of their business to train a group of people for free. That's kind of people they are, and that's kind of people I like to partner with. So anyway, all that being said, as you see sponsors that may or may not come on the channel, when you do, you know that there's someone that I enjoy working with professionally and probably personally as well. There's when you get into small business, that line gets a little blurry, right? So a lot of times our people we enjoy working with professionally turn into really great friendships. But Stand Still Experts, I like them a lot. They were the first ones to take a chance on the YouTube channel sponsoring this live, and I can't thank them enough. Stand Still Experts, thank you. For information on Stand Still Experts, depending on where you're watching, you can either look into the description below or in the comments. So it'll be one of the first comments below. Check them out. Let them know I sent you. Tell them thank you for taking a chance on a little old Finch channel. All right, let's say hi to a few of you guys. Number one comment, first comment, Cannon Johnson. Good morning, Joe. Cannon from snow-covered West Tennessee. Oh, hope you didn't get too much snow over there. We were supposed to get snow here. We were supposed to get 1 to 3 inches yesterday. Got a dusting. So maybe we sent it your way. I don't know. If so, I apologize. Well, kind of apologize. I'm kind of glad we didn't get any snow. But I'm sorry that you got the snow. We should have kept it moving. It did not follow the plan. Cannon and I were on a panel yesterday. I'm not sure when it's going to go live with ArcSight. ArcSight's a group of guys that they've got some software that seems to work really well. I haven't used the software, but I have interacted with the fellows at ArcSight. All of them seem like legitimately really good people. So I was willing to sit on the panel and talk about some. The first panel I sat on with ArcSight was a homeowner survey report, which is really interesting. We're going to have them on the channel to talk about this survey. But Ken and I sat on a panel yesterday of basically fence industry leaders talking about in a panel form of what the conversation we have here a lot, which is, how do you set yourself apart? What, as a new contractor, what are some pitfalls to avoid, that sort of thing. But the point of this story is I messaged Cannon last night because sometimes I get little tugs, right? Where I'm driving home. I was driving home last night and I got thinking about Cannon and his business and watching it grow. And if you guys don't follow the My Fence Life show, I was gonna say My Fence Life story, but that's two different things combined. You should follow Cannon on TikTok. I enjoy watching his TikToks. So what I shared with him. So anyway, I was thinking about watching his fencing journey. The guy's teed up for success. So I was like, but what I learned a little while ago is you got to listen to those tugs, right? So by me, thinking about letting my mind wander off as I'm driving home, thinking about Canada, like, I ought to text him, I ought to message him. So I did. Anyway, we had a great conversation. I think Cannon is absolutely teed up for success. And that's exactly what I told him. Anyway, Cannon, welcome. Glad to have you here. Adam Sims, Freedom Fencing of Georgia. Welcome, friend. Love your hats. Thank you so much for giving me a hat. Lee Coatney. Hi, everyone. Lee with Arkansas Fence Pro from Hot Springs, Arkansas. Lee, how are you, sir? Lee's running a fence company out of Arkansas, so he actually came up for the free training we had here in Springfield, Missouri. And since then, Lee has become a client of Ozark Fence. Thank you so much, Lee. Lee's had a couple orders come through on our e-commerce website. I think that's the actual term for it, e-commerce website, our online store. We sell fence fittings online. We had a sale. Actually, we have a sale going on right now. And Lee loaded up on some chain link fittings. Lee, thank you. I appreciate that a lot. Keep on trucking, man. Thank you. I appreciate that, Cannon. It's just when you think you got it figured out. This was kind of a conversation Ken and I talked about last night was I think the biggest secret in the fencing industry is no one really has it figured out. Everyone's just really good at thinking they've got figured out. Everyone's still figuring it out, right? So, and apparently I'm still figuring out this technology business. Fence Industry Podcast with Dan Wheeler. Guys, if you're not listening to this podcast, as Dan says in his intro, the first and only podcast for the fencing industry, it might not be the only podcast anymore. So Dan and Cannon have a podcast now. So, their live show is now on podcast. So they've got a podcast now, Dan. So maybe the intro needs to be reworked a little bit. Still the first podcast for the fencing industry, but it's not the only one anymore. Anyway, if you guys listen to podcasts, check out Dan Wheeler's podcast. I like keeping it on deck on my phone. I listen to it on the way to work and on the way home. So right now we're in the middle of the Fence Tech series. I think the third installment of Fence Tech. So I'm getting a kick out of that. Dan, welcome. Mama always said one of the few guarantees in life, technology will always let you down. She's not wrong. I think she's onto something there. So, Todd, I think the main problem here is I am the IT guy. That's the problem. If we want to boil this down to one issue we've got here, I'm the IT department. Doesn't always work. So one day I dream of being large enough to have an IT guy. Maybe that day is sooner rather than later. But yeah. Tom, how are you? Tom Williams says, glad you're there. Lots to learn from you. I'm glad I'm here too, Tom, and I'm glad you're with us. Thank you so much. The one, the only Stainman. What's up, Joe? Johnny Cocoa Butter. You started this. Well, I don't know where you started this. I first heard you adopt this persona, I guess you'd say. Johnny Cocoa Butter, international swimsuit model, checking in from Sweden. Any of you that actually know Kenny know this is Kenny Dugan checking in from, is it the Dallas metro area? I think it's Dallas metro area, right? It's from Texas. Well, I don't know. He travels around a lot. Maybe he's not in Texas. He's based out of Texas. I believe this is the Dallas area. I'm probably wrong, and I apologize. Caleb Roth is with us. Good morning, Caleb. We just got done talking about staying still experts. Thank you in person. Glad you're here with us. Caleb and I will be loading up. I know Caleb, he's a planner, so he's probably already packed, ready to go to social media marketing world. I am not. Some of the stuff is packed. Most of it is not. Anyway, Caleb and I, and my sister Sarah. So if you guys follow the page at all, Sarah runs our residential division, our residential fencing division. So she will be going with us as well to learn all things social media. Caleb and I think, will be geeking out on the NFT and Metaverse conversations that will be going on. Along with, we're going to be talking about YouTube, and they're going to talk about TikTok there. They talked about TikTok a couple years ago there. Everyone kind of laughed. And anyway, I still haven't figured it out. Canon, however, has figured it out. Go check that guy out. But they'll be talking about podcast, anything social media, anything that has to do with social media will be talked about social media marketing world. There's thousands of people that show up at San Diego every year. If you guys are into social media marketing, you should absolutely attend. It is crazy. So yeah, Caleb is going for the first time, and I think he's going to agree with me once we get back that is absolutely worthwhile. So, Gannon, you should think about it. Dan Wheeler, you should think about it because it's all about social media all the time. Ken says, "You're amazing, brother. Check out his TikTok at Jackson Finsco. Keep it up, bro. I love watching his TikTok because one of the things that Ken and I were talking about last night was that as your fence company grows, you find yourself in the field less and less, right? Just because there's more on the business side that needs to be taken care of. We're to the point here that I haven't been in the field in several years, and I kind of miss it. I didn't miss it at the time. And I'm sure if I did it full time, I probably would not miss it anymore. But as I find myself working in the office full time, either behind a desk or behind a camera, I find myself missing being out in the field with the guys. Listen, you always remember things with rosy glasses, right? The roses never have thorns and all that. But things seemed simpler when we were out just building fence. It seemed easier somehow. So anyway, Ken and I were talking about that. I'm jealous. I live vicariously where I'm going with this. I live vicariously through Cannon's TikTok. So you guys should watch it as well. Yeah. So this is the thing, right? Is missing the freedom. I mean, my day is blocked out for me. I mean, by me. I mean, it's by my own doing, but my day's pretty well blocked out for me before it begins as far as, what time I'm going to spend on what. And it's all typically in the office, whether we're talking about growing an e-commerce store, whether we're talking about the new business venture, which there's an update on the business venture. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But yeah, it's kind of all scheduled out, and it's worthwhile. It's worthwhile thing. Like, it needs to be done. Someone is going to have to do it. So let's talk about. So one thing we're going to do, we're going to change the format on the channel a little bit in the future, upcoming in the future. Once we find an editor that we really enjoy working with, we're going to change the format a little bit to where instead of pre-recorded videos like the one you'll see this afternoon, today is a reactions video on repairing a fence. This is a question I get a lot. Instead of being pre-recorded content, well, it'll still be pre-recorded, I guess, but it'll be more of a week in the life, right? So we'll have a videographer that has a camera and follows me and my team around for the week, kind of see what we've been up to, see what challenges we face and how we solve the problems. I think that would be incredibly interesting. It's a format I watch. So I'm into watches. I like timepiece watches. And I watch a few watch shows. Sounds like a tongue twister, but and that's kind of the format all these guys go through, right? So whether we're talking about Timepiece Gentlemen or whether we're talking about just CRM Jewelers, there's a few out there. Luxury Bazaar is Roman Sharp. Anyway, they all do week in the life. So where they have these guys have massive channels, so they have a camera crew, kind of follows them and their team around and documents what they go through in a week. So kind of a behind the scenes look on how the business works. I think we're moving that direction. I think that'd be incredibly interesting. But since we don't have that, let's talk about what an average day looks like. So let's think about yesterday. So what did we get done yesterday? So a bunch of interviews. So we're growing the team. We're adding to our, I guess you call them support staff. So out in the fabrication shop and building and grounds, these guys fabricate gates. They fix tools. They also support the retail wholesale side. They'll pick orders. They'll pre-pull orders. They'll load up clients that come through. Also unload the supply trucks that come through. So yesterday was kind of a busy day for them too. We had 3 deliveries. We had we had a fitting delivery. We had our normal Stevens delivery, which was pipe, post, and wire. And then we had some slats show up. Kind of a busy day for them unloading trucks, but those guys cranked out. Matt and I were talking. Matt is my shop foreman, basically my building and grounds foreman. I think they cranked out 101 panels this week. So 6 foot tall, 12 foot wide construction panels. We had 100 of them done pretty quick. So they knocked those out fairly quickly. on top of building. They also build gates. We custom build our own chain link and ornamental steel gates for clients. Anyway, we're adding to that crew because the support staff is sorely needed. So a bunch of interviews for that yesterday on my end. Also, so this is going to be interesting to see too, right? Because no one, I don't want to say no one, but we rarely see the rough side of our businesses put out in the public, right? It's always more fun to show the rosy part. It's not as fun to show the thorns. But this week, so I got a call from City Utilities. What day was that? Monday or Tuesday? Probably Monday. Saying, "Hey, we show that you're using an excessive amount of water." That's odd. An excessive amount of water. I mean, it's March. We're not doing. I mean, you'd think peak water usage would be July or August, right? When we're loading up a ton of water and sending it out with the crews for mixing concrete, that sort of thing. I'm not getting into the wet set, dry set conversation today. Thank you very much. But we'll load up hundreds of gallons and send it out with the crews. But we're not doing that right now, just because business isn't as busy as it would be in July and August. Anyway, I said, well, so like what days are we talking about? She said, well, actually, we have a program that shows us by the hour on water usage. So, for example, at between 3 and 4 a.m. this morning, you used 130 gallons of water. Well, that's absolutely not right. I mean, there shouldn't have been anyone here at 3 o'clock in the morning between 3 and 4. So, as I'm talking to her on my office phone, I'm looking on my cell phone and reviewing the video footage from overnight, and no alerts popped up that there was movement on the cameras. Anyway, I said, so what do you think is going on? She said, I think you have a leak in between your meter and your building. Now, this building, we also need to do a building walkthrough video. We've kind of been in a constant state of working on this place. So I haven't done one yet, but we need to just buckle up and do it. But so the main structure here, or structures, so the building I'm in right now used to be a barn. And then 50 feet away was the house, the farmhouse, right? Well, then over the years, back in the 50s, there was an electrical contractor that was here and started connecting everything and reconfigured the barn. And anyway, the main house where the water comes in, this is the point, was built back in the 20s and 30s. So it's an old structure. Now, it's obviously the water was upgraded sometime after that, but it's all galvanized pipe. So long story short, we got a leak somewhere between the meter and where the water comes in the building, because we verified the crawl spaces are dry. There's no big wet, wet fields or wet spots out around the building. So it's got to be leaking somewhere else, which means we get to cut and dig up part of our parking lot. We get to dig a trench over. Poor Sarah. Everything always happens to her office. So her office, the ceiling fell in on it back early last year. So we remodeled her office while we were at it. So we kicked her out of her office and we remodeled the office, and she got to move back in. And we not promptly, but then, so about every year her office has been having something. So we had to kick her back out of her office, cut a hole in the floor because there's not actually crawl space access to this part of the building. So we cut a hole in the floor. But then, of course, the dirt was essentially sitting on are they rafters? Not rafters are in the roof. Whatever they are, the subfloor. I don't know, beams on the floor. So we had to send a couple guys down there for a couple days and dig out that area so we could get to the plumbing. So a buddy of mine has a plumbing company. So he's going to come in, dig up our parking lot, dig a trench through our courtyard, get under Sarah's office, yank out all the galvanized pipe, replace it with current, probably PEX, I would guess. Yeah. So anyway, dealt with that yesterday. So we're dealing with the city. Yeah, that's a whole, I don't want to get into. You got to deal with the city. Sometimes that can be a ball wax. I don't want to get too far into it and disparage them too much because we need to work with them. But if you are watching from the city of Springfield, the building development department division, whatever, could use a little work. They've got some wires crossed over there. But anyway, so it was a busy day, and it was a Friday, right? So everyone's wrapping up projects before the weekend. I don't like to leave projects over the weekend. I want everything tied up, all loose ends tied up or cut off or whatever, everything done for the weekend. So On top of that, Sarah and I, like I said, are going to be gone all next week for Social Media Marketing World. So we're also getting the team ready for that, just working ahead. Who needs support? What do you need? All that sort of stuff. So yesterday was a busy day. And this is why I think that show would be fairly entertaining to watch. It's just like, I was talking to Matt Warner about this building situation. He had shared with me a struggle they were having over in his business. He talked about it a little bit on the panel we were on yesterday. But anyway, so it was one of those like, oh, you think you had a bad week? Well, let me tell you about my week. Like every hour, we're leaking about 130 gallons of water. Like right now, leaking water. I mean, you can't shut water to the building off, right? I mean, you could, but this is also the only building that has bathrooms in it. So you shut the water off to the building, and guess what? Now you don't have bathrooms anymore. So can't have that. Not a great idea. Anyway, so I was sharing that with him. We're leaking water each and every hour, about 130 gallons an hour. So fantastic. But I think it'd be fun to watch just because I think it'd be interesting for you guys to watch the behind the scenes on what goes on at some of these businesses. Show you guys the thorns. Like I said, we're really good at showing you guys the roses, not great at showing you guys the thorns. So Tom Williams says, great idea for us desk jockeys. It will feel like we're in the field working. Can't wait. Yeah. So this is going to be following. Yeah, I guess when I say my team, I really thought the office team, but you're right. So we could probably follow the production crews around. We need to get those guys on board because some of the guys are not keen on video in general. Not that there's anything wrong, but that's not what they're about, being on video. So because we've broached this subject before. So talking about team member highlight videos, Sean King has done it really well. A lot of us are trying to emulate that, right? Bring that to our own businesses. So we had a conversation a few months ago on a Final Friday, said, hey, we'll start doing videos of you guys, just a short introduction video. Hi, my name is, I do this at the company. Here's something not company related that I really enjoy doing. A few of the production guys were not too keen on that. They're like, not that they have any reason not to be on. They just don't want to, right? I say, hey, I'm not, my life isn't on video here. So I don't know. We'll see. Mitchell Gregory, welcome, sir. Thank you so much for the signs. I got those in this week. Would you mind elaborating on the hiring process? We're doing right now, so this is a great time. From finding new team members to questions you ask, requirements, etc. Absolutely. Let's dig into this subject a little bit. If you guys have questions or comments, drop them in the comments below. Hiring process. So right now we're hiring for kind of just, I don't want to say general labor because that makes it sound like just, kind of just brawn, right? We're hiring basic laborers, and that's not at all what we're doing. We're hiring our future leaders is what we're doing, right? So we're in a unique phase now. We're in a growth phase, but we're what would you say? We're employed. We're not employed appropriately. We have no team members to cover our, growth for the next few months. But now, so we're hiring for a few months in advance. But and I say that to say, if someone walks through the door and they're a rock star, we make them offer on the spot. But we're not pressed to hire, if that makes sense. So we're not filling an empty position. We are building for a future position. Maybe that makes more sense. So we're doing a lot of interviews. So what is the position? Like I said, the position is on Matt's team. So Matt is our lead fabricator. He's in charge of our building and grounds. Basically, if it happens on property, he's our guy. If it happens off property, our field supervisor, Scott, handles all the production. So he's Scott's kind of counterpart. Building and grounds projects, mainly fabrication, but also freestanding fence pickets, keeping the inventory area in check, making sure it stays organized because that is a bear that can get wildly out of control. Also keeping our lot square. We keep on bringing in inventory. So one of the discussion topics on yesterday's panel discussion was what we're doing. Well, there's a couple questions this relates to. What are we doing to normalize pricing, or that's not the question, but basically to level out the pricing swings, right? When it comes to wild price swings, how are you coping with that? Well, we're bringing in massive amounts of inventory so that we can kind of lock in our price for the next little bit. Also, one of the questions is how are you planning for the future economy? This isn't going to be a political discussion, but I think our economy might go into a cooling phase here in the next little bit. And I say cooling, no one wants to use the R word, right? And I don't think we're there, but I think we're going to have to slow down a little bit, especially currently when we're seeing fuel act the way it's acting as far as pricing. That usually helps put the brakes on spending a little bit because we need to put the brakes on spending because inflation is getting pretty. I think 7.5%, 7.6%. It was the last number I had heard on inflation, which is getting to be concerning. So anyway, fuel prices, which means immediately we got notices that all the fuel surcharges were doubling. Now, here's the thing. So fuel surcharges came in the last time fuel got over 120 a barrel, but they never went away. When fuel was under $100 a barrel for quite a while, and the surcharges never went away. Interesting, right? So now that fuel's back up over 100, I think, well, last I saw was $125 a barrel. The fuel surcharges have doubled. Everything's getting more expensive. How are we coping with that? Again, bringing in massive amounts of inventory, making sure any truckloads that come in here are entirely full. Because depending on the vendor, we usually pay for freight just to get the price of the fittings down. Sometimes the vendors will build freight into the pricing, but they'll also build some markup in there. So this is kind of our way of saying, hey, we'll cover the freight. Anyway, so making sure that truck is full, whether it's by weight or by volume, making sure that thing is packed to the gill so that the dollars we're paying for freight coming in are absolutely, being used the most efficiently. We're getting off track here. So I say all that to say our lot is getting quite full. There's a lot of wire. There's a lot of pipe. We have 2 more truckloads of pipe on order. They're supposed to show up probably next week. We'll probably be bringing in some more wire. We got a lot of fittings coming in. So we partnered with a factory in India for chain link fence fittings. It's the same factory. The fittings are going to be the same fittings some of you guys see currently from some of the major wholesalers. Anyway, got to find stuff. So that's why we're hiring more. That's why we're hiring more for this team, right? Is to try to keep the yard square, the inventory on in check. The production guys, the support production guys, the fabricators are doing a phenomenal job. Like I said, they got 101 panels done this week on top of gates, on top of fixed diggers and all the rest of the stuff. So those guys are on point, but we're growing more with inventory. So that's the position. But here's the thing is we also have a different business venture going, a little bit more of a manufacturing role, right? So I'm going to need team members for that, but probably not on a full-time basis in the beginning. We're going to have to figure out how to do this stuff, right? We're going to have to bring in some trainers. We might even go off-site for us, on-site for the training. Anyway, we might have to travel for some training. It's not going to be full-time. So the idea is these team members will be employed by Ozark Fence Company and then leased out to new business venture. So that's why we're hiring as well. Because I know I'm going to need to pull 2 or 3 team members for 10, 15, 20 hours a week. They have to be pulled from somewhere. So we'll probably pull them from Ozark Fence, specifically on Matt's crew here in the shop. That's a very long-winded answer to say who we're hiring for, right? Because I think the who is important as to the hiring process. All right. So that's the position we're hiring. So we're posting on Indeed. So the last hiring round was actually for the same crew. So Matt's crew went from him plus 2 to now it's him plus 4, 5, him plus 5, and we're hiring 4 more. But the last hiring round, we did a mixture of Facebook and Indeed. And when we looked at the team members that didn't really pan out and the interviews that didn't show and didn't go well, in our market, the good interview, the interviews or the applicants that turned into great team members came from Indeed. So this time around, we're only posting on Indeed. We're not posting anything on Facebook because there's also the secondary conversation about Facebook kind of being your your branding page, right? Your branding channel. So sometimes that message can get confused when you're bringing on team members, because everyone always says like, here we grow again, like that. For whatever reason, that's what everyone uses here in town. Here we grow again, we're adding team members. But in the back of your mind, you're like, are you growing, or are you filling empty positions? A lot of times when they're filling empty positions, they don't want to tell anybody that maybe it's a culture issue, or maybe, whatever the reason. So by keeping it on Indeed, we're also keeping that message off our branding channel, even though in our instance we are growing. Anyway, so we are posting on Indeed. Basically, and actually Sean mentioned this yesterday on the panel too about hiring practices. So he actually doesn't post for a position, which is interesting. He posts just that they are growing and they're interested in meeting and having interviews with just team members in general. So this is a valid point. Here we grow sounds better than everyone keeps leaving and we need more help. But I think here's the thing is it gets used so much to cover up that everyone's leaving and we need more help, that I think now when everyone sees here we grow, they're like, oh, that's code for people keep leaving and they need more help. So anyway, posted on Indeed, general job description, which for this job is going to be a little bit hard because it could be fabricating, it could be wiring gates, it could be stocking inventory, it could be, loading, unloading trucks, it could be loading, unloading clients, it could be pre-staining fence pickets, it could be going out on repairs. We have an Isuzu NPR that we we endearingly call the Isuzu crew. A couple guys that go and do repairs, last minute hurry up repairs. A hospital gets, their motor pool gets broken into and they need someone to come fix it. Well, they can't wait 2 or 3 days to get on our commercial schedule for repairs, so they need it done now. So we got the Isuzu crew that will run right out and get that fence fixed, gate fixed, whatever it is. I say all this to say the job is a bit varied. So general job requirements, you need to be able to lift more than 50 pounds consistently throughout the day, about driver's license, reliable transportation. That's what this posting has. Now, I'm seriously considering moving to more of the approach that Sean King discussed, which is just kind of a general, hey, we're growing and we need more rock stars. If you know a rock star, send them by. We'd love to talk to them. Stuff like that. Anyway, not what we're doing currently. So we have a post on Indeed. Now, on Indeed, you can do skills assessments. So they fill out a couple skills assessments, forklift safety and warehouse safety, because those are two that seem to apply. But also a phone pre-interview, which is they get a list of 3 questions and then that are written out, and then they post up their responses. So describe any relevant experience, and then they can answer the question. Tell us a time, or what is it? What do you enjoy most about working as a team? Because that's important to us. And tell us a time that you Tell us a time you diffused a situation with a coworker or something to that. How do you handle negative coworkers? And it's interesting to hear those responses. But in order to move forward to an in-person interview, they have to answer they have to go through the 2 skills assessments. They take 2 to 3 minutes, and they have to record their phone pre-interview, the answer to those 3 questions, which seems simple, but we require this to move forward to an in-person interview because it takes a little bit of time. It takes 10 minutes to get this stuff done. But what it's done is it's weeded out all the people that are looking for another check on their unemployment box, right? They have to say that they applied so many places and this and that. And if someone were to call check up, we'd have to say, yeah, they did apply. Now, they didn't schedule the interview. They didn't come to the interview. That's not the question. The question is, did they apply? Right. So anyway, we don't count it as an application until all that's done. And we send them a link for an in-person interview, which the link is it plugs into our time tap where they can see what time we have available, what day we have available, that sort of thing. And then they can plug in whatever, time. They enter their information, their contact information. It sends them a confirmation and it reminds them. Our show up rate for the interviews has gone through the roof. I think all of them showed up yesterday. Thursday we had one miss, but it rescheduled for Friday and they showed up. So before that, so the last hiring round we did Facebook and Indeed, we didn't require them to really do anything. We said, hey, did you pass? Do you agree with this? Yes. Well, here's your in-person interview. Less than half showed up to the interviews, which is frustrating because on our end, we schedule time for like this for myself and for Matt to be available for these interviews because we both want to have a conversation with this person. And then when there's no show, well, that's half an hour that we could have been doing, that was scheduled out of our time. We could have been doing something else. This time around, we're probably, I'd have to go back and look, we're probably 90% on actual on-time or on-site interviews. Like I said, one yesterday rescheduled to today. So I guess you could call that a canceled interview. Anyway, I digress. Indeed, and requiring they fill out the skills assessments and the phone interviews has done wonders. And the folks we have showing up, I mean, knock on wood, pretty decent individuals, pretty quality applicants. Now, here's our rule, though. And I believe this either came from Sarah or Matt. Podcast they're listening to. So, hey, there's a theory running around, or not running around, that there's not been an original idea in like the last 100 years, that we're just improving and repeating old ideas. So Sarah heard this from a podcast. Who knows where they heard it from? But something like if it isn't 100% yes, then it's a no. Right? So there's no middle grounds. There's no, we'll see if it works out. Here's my problem. And it's a good problem to have. I understand that. But I like to see the potential in people, right? So I'll listen to interviews and I'll kind of pick out the good parts. Like, all right, so if you take this good part, put it with this good part, and like grow the rest of it, I think we could have something here. Now, the problem is I went through a bunch of red flags to get to those green flags, right? And it hasn't worked out so well. Not in terms of negative coworkers, but just team members that just don't live up to their potential. I think that's a polite way of saying that. They're just not the rock stars we're looking for. So this time around, since we're not in a hiring crunch, we don't need to hire anyone on. We're wanting to add more for the future. So now if it's not 100% yes, it's a no. And that's one guy's opinion. Here's the thing is that there's always more than one way to build a fence, right? There's also more than one way to hire team members. This one's ours, and so far it seems to be panning out. The problem is, and it's probably not a problem, but we're turning away some applicants that are like 75%, right? So they passed all the criteria. They had clean backgrounds, they had driver's license, but there's this one thing where like that doesn't seem right? And it's typically motivation. So anyway, so I don't know. Let's pull this question back up. So that's how the interview. So in the interview, we're going to spend probably 2-3 minutes talking about their resume or their application, depending on which they bring with them. And on Indeed, usually it gives you a resume anyway. We're going to spend only a couple minutes, talk about job history in the past, because I'm not really concerned with what they've written down as their past. I want to talk to them about it, right? It's really easy to polish up a resume, right? And just make it sound super slick. I'm not interested. I'm interested in kind of the overview. You've held 3 jobs in the last 10 years. Pretty solid, pretty good work history there. Or has it been 10 jobs in the last 5 years? That's a red flag. So we're going to talk a few minutes, but more than that, we're going to talk about who you are, right? What do you enjoy doing? When you're not at work, what are you doing? Are you out in the community? Or are you with family? Or are you with friends? What do you do outside of work that's fun? Because that's kind of telling of someone, right? So we had an interview. Well, I don't want to get into I don't want to get into individual instances because that might not be allowed. So sometimes there's some red flags in there. We'll say that, right? So we'll talk about personal, what they like to do outside of work. We'll talk about the previous jobs they've had in the past, the pros and the cons. What'd you love about working at X? And usually I start off, I'll make sure it's true. I'll look through there and I go, all right, to be clear, I don't know anyone at these companies that are in like a management position. So when I'm asking these questions, I'm asking simply for your response, not to gather information or anything. But I say, hey, what did you love about working for X? Okay. Why aren't you working there any longer? Like, what wasn't great about that? And they'll usually tell us. And more often than not, it's usually management, which is telling, right? So they usually have a manager they just couldn't get along with, and that led to either them leaving or them being asked to leave. So we'll ask about the last jobs. What'd you love about it? What didn't you love? The question I've been asking lately is, if you could wave a magic wand and just will your perfect job into existence, what is it? What would that look like? And not as specific, but in broad terms. Is it working with others? Is it working by yourself? Is it working, what is it? Is, working, team or individual? Is it working inside? Is it working outside? What is it? And kind of go from there. And then what is the job that you just absolutely would dread coming to? What does that look like? And really what we're trying to figure out is, does the job we think we're hiring for match up with their dream job or what their nightmare job, I guess you would call it, right? And then I like asking what their 5 and 10-year plans are in broad terms. I don't need specifics of where they're going or anything like that. But what I'm listening for, what I'm really trying to listen for is stability, right? So we're hiring for 10, 15 years in advance. We're hiring for someone to be here for the next 10 or 15 years because hiring is expensive. Training is expensive. We need to hire the right person who is they're looking for their retirement job, right? Now we'd like for them to be in their 30s. They're not thinking about retirement tomorrow, but they are wanting to put roots down somewhere. So we're looking for stability. We're looking for an active family life. So that, I think that's important. I believe that this one came from Matt talking about team sports. Tell me about the team sports you played. Did you play team sports in high school? Did you enjoy it? Did you not enjoy it? Because in a lot of ways, this place resembles, these workplaces resemble team sports. We're all driving towards a common goal, and we are graded on performance metrics, right? So while this doesn't directly correlate to baseball or football, there's a lot of things that do. Working as a team, driving towards a common goal, and being evaluated on your performance. Pretty similar. Thank you, Matt Warner, for that little tidbit of information. So we'll ask about 5-year, 10-year plans. We'll ask about group, team sports, that sort of thing, and then we'll give them a chance to ask us about the company. Right? I want you to. This is as much an interview for you as it is for us. So I want to make sure we're both comfortable. After all this is done, and then usually the initial questions will lead to follow-on questions, right? So tell me more about this. I heard you say that. Could you tell me a little bit more about that sort of thing? And then we'll take a break, and I'll say, all right. So Matt, Sarah and I, whoever's in the room, we're going to take a few minutes. We'll be right back. We'll go powwow. What do you think? Is it 100% or is it not? That's really the pass fail here. If they are 100%, we had a guy come in last Wednesday. 2 weeks anyway. He came in, nailed the interview. I was like, guys, I think it's 100%. They said, yep, we think it's 100% too. We walked back in, said, I'd like to make you a job offer. And typically during the interview, we'll also ask when they're available. So this gentleman had recently relocated to Springfield, was currently he had relocated he had relocated. He was ready to work. So I said, hey, I'd like to make you a job offer. The job is this, it pays that. And I'd like for you to start Monday. What do you think? And got an answer for him there. One of the things we found, so how we previously used to hire is we would do interviews for a week or 2 weeks, however long, and then we would do callbacks on a Friday. And it could have been someone we interviewed the week prior, and we'd say, hey, the interview went super well. We'd love for you to come on at the Ozark Fence team. We'd love for you to come work with us and all that. Could you start Monday? More often than not, the answer was, I've already taken a job somewhere else. Oh, that's a question Matt's been asking lately, and I liked it too, is what other interviews do you have lined up? What other jobs are you currently seeking or something like that? Like, do you have interviews? And what he's listening for is it someone that's just shotgun blasting out, like just sending in applications everywhere, just see what sticks, or is it someone that's kind of has a dedicated idea of what they're looking for? That can tell you a lot also. Yeah, so we'll make them. So what we found was people already had jobs. So what I learned was we need to make an offer on the spot if we want this person, and it is 100% yes. Like I said, it's black or white, it's pass fail, it's 100% or 0%. If it's 100%, they get a job offer on the spot. I'd love for you to start Monday. Or if they're currently employed, I'd love for you to put in a 2-week notice to start here in 2 weeks, that sort of thing. And we go from there. I think I answered your question there. We talk about the job, we talk about the company, we talk about our benefit package, and we talk about what requirements they have. We typically ask, is there anything in the next 2 months that would prevent you from coming to work regularly? Do you have a vacation plan? Do you have whatever? But yeah, make an offer on the spot. So this week's interviews, we had several that were like 75-80%, and in the last hiring round I probably would have made them an offer, but this time we're doing a little bit different. Like I said, Sarah had it right, or the podcast she was listening to had it right. If you're recruiting, if you're hiring for the future, if it's not 100%, it's 0%. So we didn't make any job offers this week, but we had several that, like I said, 75-80%. Mitchell, I hope that helps. Went down a few rabbit holes there. So if not, drop another comment in the comments below and we'll circle back around to the subject. I like this subject a lot because it's something that we're currently going through. Excellent barrier. Hi, Joe. Love the show. Question: what do you suggest for design for a fence in a location that regularly gets 60 to 80 mile an hour wind gust? That's a lot, and especially regularly. So, if it was a spot that occasionally got it, the answer would be different. It probably depends on the fence type, materials, right? So, are we talking about a 6-foot privacy fence? Or are we talking about a 4-foot chain link fence? Would probably not. We're probably talking about a wood. Probably talking about solid wood. That's usually when wind load comes into effect. Or it could be. I guess it could be chain link with privacy slats or privacy screen. Let me know what material we're talking about, and I can probably give you a better idea. If we're talking about privacy fence, we're obviously talking about steel post. But purpose-built steel posts are going to be your best bet. We can get in. There's some discussion there on accurate wind load rating of wood posts, because wind load rating on a brand new wood post is not the same as wind load rating on a 5 to 10-year-old wood post, that sort of thing. But even the purpose built, so we like using Postmaster steel posts by Master Halco. I'm gonna have to fact check this, but I believe it's 72 mile an hour wind load rating for the Postmaster Plus post. I believe it was 70 on the Postmaster, 72 on the PM Plus. I'll have to double check that, but it's in that ballpark. So even 80 miles an hour is probably outside of the wind load rating of the Postmaster post. And a lot of the other posts I've seen, there's Lifetime, there's Gregory. They all seem to be kind of around that 70 mile an hour mark. So 80, I don't know of a steel post that is wind load rated for 80 mile an hour. Now, you could get, 2.5 inch, schedule 80, like some wild post, fill it with concrete, and I'm sure the wind load rating would exceed 80 miles an hour. But you'd have to get it tested. So I'm not sure. Let me know what type of fence. So one thing you could do too is you could bring your post spacing from 8 foot down to 6 foot or 4 foot. A lot of times when we're doing like 8 foot tall fence, we'll bring post spacing to 6 foot, unless, if a concern like yours comes up, if there isn't a lot of windbreak in the area, if it's in a neighborhood with a lot of houses, not a lot of shear wind is going to come through there. 8 foot on 6 foot centers, 8 foot tall and 6 foot centers would probably be adequate. But if this thing's on a ranch estate where there's not a lot of trees, there's no houses, there's not a lot going to stop the wind, 4 foot centers would be where we'd go on that. 8 foot tall goes at least 3 foot deep, 4 foot if we can get it, just because it's going to get a lot of wind load for us. So that, and if we're talking about design, so if we're talking about a wood fence, or a composite fence, if we're talking about a privacy fence, the next step you could do is go to a shadow box. So the shadow box design, while it doesn't let a lot of direct wind through, it does does release some of the pressure. So when wind is blowing against the fence, it's building up pressure, a pressure system behind that fence, or which on the face that the wind is blowing, it's building up a pressure system against that. So even if the wind is sustained but not direct, anyway, it's going to build up a pressure system on this fence. The shadow box fence, while it doesn't let the wind directly through, it does relieve the pressure on the fence. So shadow box could also be an acceptable design. Now, as a fence guy, not a fan of shadow box, right? And as a homeowner, I'm also not a fan of shadow box. I actually got on our HOA board with the express intent of doing away with shadow box fences in our neighborhood because they're a nightmare to maintain. If we're talking about staining and sealing, it's going to take twice as much stain. It's going to take twice as much time because you're trying to get into all those nooks and crannies. Building takes longer because now instead of we've got a crew working one side of the fence, we've got one crew or a crew and a half split on two sides of the fence. Labor goes up significantly. And as a homeowner, there's no way you can weedy in between those pickets, right? So if we're looking from the top down, you've got two pickets overlapping. I'm not great at doing this. I need to have a whiteboard. But if you've got two pickets overlapping, you can't get to that middle part with a weed eater without just totally destroying the pickets. Shadow box is a bit of a nightmare, but solves the wind load issue. So there's that. So Exian, if you drop in the comments below what type of fence specifically you're looking for, we can get into this conversation a little bit deeper. Jason Ferris, welcome. How to overcome. I like this channel. Or I like the sound of the channel. I have to watch it. What's your thoughts on driving post over concrete, wood, and for wrought iron? Wrought iron probably meaning steel, not including gates. Jason, the size, because this is a pretty big discussion, and it's a fair question because it's a discussion that's going on right now in the industry. So your question is driving over concrete. If you can drive, if you live in an area where your ground will accept driven posts, drive them all day. Done. Now, in our company, we bought the driver, we invested in some taller posts. We were going to drive these posts, right? And I have a couple rent houses in a couple different parts of town, and we're going to build fence around them anyway. So let's try driving the post because as the owner of the house, I'm a little bit more lenient with with testing out new things. I wouldn't want to test something new on a client's house, right? So, and we failed probably on 60 or 70% of the holes. The post would reject before it got to the proper depth. I mean, it would just stop. And then when we pulled them up, so what we ended up doing was we put two guys on the driver, like really giving it some pressure. Well, then it just starts splitting out the post at the bottom. So they're hitting rock and they're rejecting, they're stopping, and it starts to deform the post. So if it's 60 or 70%, you're still going to have to drill some holes. My thought is if we're already drilling holes, then we're not going to have two methods. If we're already using one method, then there's no sense using some sort of hybrid method where we drive some and we set some. I really think it's all or nothing. Now, you said not including gates, but gates is a decent part of this discussion too, to where, if you're setting your post for gates, but you're driving for the rest of them, I don't get that either. One of the benefits of driving is you can build on it the day you drive it. So there's some interesting videos out there. I was watching, I don't even remember the channel. It was a commercial operator or a contractor building commercial fence at an airport. And they had like three crews. They had one crew that was laying everything out. They had another crew that was coming through, driving the post. And then they had a crew following that was putting up the wire. And it was a conveyor belt of fence. It went from no fence to fence done in the same process. It's slick. And you want to talk about labor savings where now you're not coming back, 2 or 3 days later, that sort of thing. It made sense. But for us in our area, did not happen. It couldn't happen. The post rejected for rock. If you can drive it, though, if you're in an area, I get so jealous of guys like Cannon and Mark Olson and guys in the southern states, Dan Blanc, that can drive these posts. I'm so jealous of you. If I could drive them, I would. The benefits are massive of driving, but some of us live in parts of the country where that's simply not an option. What are your thoughts on driving posts? Yes, do that. Over concrete? Absolutely. So wrought iron, so we're probably talking about steel ornamental. So wrought iron isn't, I guess, I don't know. It's a term for a fence, but not actually speaking to an exact fence, right? And it's usually called wrought iron in our area. Wrought iron, WRAUGHT. I believe that's a guess, but I'm pretty sure it is wrought iron. So lots of people have different terms. We're typically talking about ornamental steel. So the steel posts typically aren't heavy wall, the thick enough wall, heavy wall, heavy. The walls aren't typically heavy enough to be driven without splitting out, sort of thing. So I've seen guys do this similar to vinyl, where they would drive a steel post and then sleeve the ornamental post or the vinyl post over it. Certainly an option. For our, even if we could drive, I think we would still probably we would drive chain link and wood. I think we'd probably still set ornamental aluminum and steel, ornamental aluminum for sure, because you have to build it. Well, okay. Here's another discussion. You don't have to. We build it as we go. Yep. One guy's opinion, right? But I hope, Jason, I hope that answers your question. If not, drop them in the comments below. If you guys have comments, drop them in. We're an hour in. We got an hour and a half left. We got some time to talk about stuff. We're also going to update you as once we get to the end of the questions. We're also going to update you on the business venture. Love to see a team member chart from you at the top all the way to a labor position with job descriptions, responsibilities. So we're getting away from the traditional employment chart because that my one guy's opinion. I think that traps someone into that mentality, right? I think if they see themselves on a chart, that's where they think they'll stay. And same thing with job descriptions and responsibilities. I mean, you do need to be clear about what they're expected to do, but because at the end of it, here's the thing. So responsibilities. At the end of it, there typically is in other duties as as required or as responsible, whatever, and plus others is at the bottom of this thing, right? So I think someone could pigeonhole themselves into a position that has a pretty strict description and a pretty strict responsibility chart. Now, because let's talk about one of our guys, Nick, yesterday. So Nick went from helping wire up a chain link gate to he was cutting some pipe for a little while. Then he got down and helped take dirt out of the crawl space in Sarah's office. What else did he do? He was doing a little bit of yard cleanup. He did quite a lot of stuff. But if you put that on a responsibility chart, you must be responsible for wiring gates, for cutting pipe, for pre-standing pickets, for it kind of pigeonholes them into this one thing. So we're moving away from that. Team member chart. The dangerous thing about team member charts too is it makes, I don't know. I view it more as flat, right? Because we all have a job. It's like a football team, right? So you put an organizational chart on a football team. All right. So you've got the coach. Well, you've probably got the GM, and you've got the coach, and then you've got the offensive, defensive coordinators, and you got the players. But tell me about your football team. So then does it go quarterback? And then quarterback goes out to wide receiver, say like whatever. I'm not super into football positions. I like watching it. But here's the thing is you would probably put in your organizational chart, you would probably put the quarterback above the lineman. Maybe. I mean, that's a pretty important position. In terms of pay, it's the highest paid on that field by far lately. I mean, look at the Mahomes contract. I mean, look at anyway, highest paid on the field. But if you don't have a line, if your O line is, listen, I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan, so I can tell you this firsthand. If your offensive line is lacking, it doesn't matter if you've got a rock star quarterback; it's not going to work. Also, if your defense isn't playing well, you're also going to have problems. You're probably not going to win. So I say that to say on an organizational chart, you might put quarterback ahead of lineman, ahead of defense, right? You can't score points on defense. That's a whole discussion too. But the dangerous part is the lineman in this could get viewed as being less than or lower than the quarterback. But if you don't have a line, you don't have a team. So we're getting away from traditional organizational charts also, because now, is my position important here? Absolutely. I view myself as more of the visionary, and I hold some titles here as far as, handle accounts payables, a lot of times accounts receivable, procurement, marketing, advertising, that sort of thing. But a lot of times I'm the guy thinking up these crazy ideas that everyone else is like, Joe's got an idea again. Here we go. But so am I important? Sure. But if I don't have the team to implement these ideas, it doesn't matter what ideas I have. Right. So if we put an organizational chart that has me at the top and a labor position at the bottom, that might give someone the impression that the laborers aren't important. The laborers are just as important as my position. If we don't have laborers, then it depends on how you have this. We have laborers, second men, first man, crew chief, and all that. Then the second men are doing more work, and the crew chief is trying to pick up slack. And it's a cascading effect all the way up the organizational chart. So the laborer is just as important as my position to this company, I believe. I also think if you have to put this in a pyramid chart, right, with me and then it cascading down, I think you take that chart. This is a Gary V thing. You take that chart and you flip it upside down, because I view my role as a support role. I support my team, who support their team, who support their team, right? And they're the ones taking care of the clients. It's got to go that way. We've got to view ourselves as support rather than sitting at the top of the mountain. A bit of a ramble, Dan, but I don't know. I think we as an industry are changing how we view this too. I mean, you and I have had this conversation a lot, that the companies that our dads had and our granddads had are not the same companies that we have. They can't be, and they cannot be the companies that we hand off to our next generation. So we're reorganizing what our organizational charts look like. Is that a really long-winded answer for that answer? Probably. But job descriptions, responsibilities. So Matt Warner, I reference all these guys because these are the guys I talk to. So one of the things on this panel we talk about is having kind of a support group, right, of a board of advisors sort of thing. And these guys are kind of on my board of advisors, Cannon included. I say that because Cannon doesn't feel like on this panel, Cannon made a comment. He's like, I don't know what I'm doing here. We got a dream team, and I don't know why. Cannon is there for a particular reason, because he has a worthy perspective, but he has a unique perspective in that a lot of times. So, okay, let's tie this together, right? So Dan's asking about team member chart, organization charts, job descriptions, responsibilities, because that's the way our dads did it, right? But Cannon comes from a different school of he didn't have that handed to him, right? Hey, here's what it looks like. Here's the organization chart. Here's this. This is the way it works. So Cannon doesn't have that perspective, meaning that he's free to come up with new ideas, right? Whereas Dan and I are trying to break away from old ideas. Well, I don't know about Dan. I don't want to speak for you, Dan. I'll speak for myself. I'm breaking away from ways that my granddad and ways that my dad did it, right? Where Cannon's kind of got the freedom of not being shackled to those ideas. That's a very harsh term. Anyway, I think everyone understands the point that the reason Cannon's on this board of advisors is because he has a unique position of he doesn't have because that's the way we've always done it mentality built in. So anyway, Matt Warner doesn't have job titles at the company. And I think that's interesting, because a lot of times job titles come with unintended descriptions and responsibilities, right? So someone says, well, I'm the marketing officer. Why am I in an operations meeting? Or I'm the operations. Why am I in a finance meeting? That sort of thing. Whereas really all these jobs work together, right? Again, we're talking about a flat organization chart. We all, and then the next position above is the client. We all serve the client, period. That is it. It's as flat as it gets. So job titles, descriptions, responsibilities sometimes get in the way of that, mentality. Very long-winded answer, and I apologize. Vero Fence, welcome. Have a great weekend. I'm gearing up for a pretty good weekend. So it is cold here. So right now, I'd have to look. I look at my watch. Like this thing is not going to tell me the temperature outside. It was 20 when I was coming into work. Little cold. The conference we're headed to is in San Diego. Sunny and 70. I'm in. Good weekends on tap for sure. Now, we got to travel for like 8 hours to get there because the aviation industry is absolutely bonkers. We go from Springfield, Missouri. All right, let me picture this in my head, and I got to do it backwards because you guys are viewing this backwards for me. But so we're going to go to Atlanta, which from us, we're going to go, for me, this is east. No, for you, that's, and then across the country to San Diego. Got to go backwards to go forwards or whatever. Anyway, we got 8 hours of traveling, which means we're going to get in tomorrow afternoon, but the weather will be fantastic. We're also, one of the days we have an open day. So the conference is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're going up to outside of LA Thursday to meet with a equipment manufacturer. Coming back, but we got to rent a car. Once you get to the hotel for the convention center is right next to it. You can walk, or so here's the thing, like 4 years ago, these were novel concepts, these rental scooters, whatever they're called. We don't have them in Springfield, but they have rental scooters right outside the hotel. You pay you pay $1 or $2, and this thing just takes you right to the conference center. Anyway, we don't have to have a car while we're at the conference, except for we have to get from San Diego to east of LA. Going to need a car for that, but we only need it for a day, which means we could get a pretty cool car, because when you only need it for a day, the rental fee doesn't seem so bad. And so there's a site called Turo, which is basically like the Airbnb of cars. You can rent out your car. There's some cool ones on there, and they're orange. There might be an orange McLaren on there that when you rent it for a day, not too bad. I also talked to my insurance agent and said, hey, on this rental policy, rental and unowned or whatever equipment, is there a limit on that? He's like, I don't know. Let me find out. Calls me back, says, I'm emailing it to you right now. The specific section highlighted is replacement cost, no cap. Now, listen, okay, when I said no cap, I meant there's no top, there's no, it doesn't cap out, right? Kids now hear me say no cap, they're like, oh, no lie. No, that's not what I meant. There's no top limit on, anyway. So, there very well could be an orange McLaren in our future for a day. Anyway, weekend shaping up. OG load. Oh, look at that. Matt talking about Matt. Here he is. Shout out to you, boss man. Awesome content. Matt, welcome. I appreciate it. So this is Matt that I'm talking about that runs our fabrication shop, our building and grounds. If it happens on site, it happens on Matt's watch. Yeah. So glad to have you, Matt. We were bragging on you guys on kicking out 101 panels, plus gates, plus building projects, the broken water line, digging out Sarah underneath Sarah's office. These guys rocked it this week. Truth Seeker, good morning from Tennessee. Good morning, Truth Seeker. John, the team's all here. Shout out to the coolest bosses, Joe and Matt. John, welcome. So John got some praise this week. Me and John and Matt all sat down in the office and bragged on John for a little bit. John's taking on some new responsibilities here at Ozark Fence. He's taking on some fabricating, and he's really taken to it very well. So yeah, good to see you here, John. I appreciate the team coming on in. OG, so Matt says, congrats on the 101 panels. Couldn't do it without you, John. Yeah, this is the team in action right here, right? So these guys are cool to watch work together. They really are. Got it. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mitchell. Cannon says, I really like all 6x6 fence posts. Better than most anything. I believe it lasts a very long time. And that's the thing. So 6x6 used to be our go-to gate post before we switched to steel post only. 6x6 were the way, and there's more mass there, so there's less warping, twisting, bending, any of the rest of it. So definitely a good option. John says we were rocking and rolling this week. Glad to be a part. So talking about these 101 panels, and these guys absolutely knocked it out of the park. So Jason says he wants one of these hats. Guess what? These hats are now a collector's item because they're not making them anymore. I like it because obviously the orange lettering, right, goes with the theme that's going on here. But they're having a change of direction on their hats. So I gotta keep really good. You gotta take really good care of this. That looking at it, looks pretty clean. Might need to run through the washing machine real quick just to clean it up. Mark says drive, but get the depth to make it solid. So talking about driving versus setting posts in concrete. I agree. If you can drive it, do it. What does the depth change when driven? Is this published in ASTM? So he might answer this in a little bit, but typically 6 inches more than set. So 36-inch would be ASTM on driven. I believe. Double check me on that. But I believe it's 6 inches. Driven is acceptable 6 inches deeper than the published direct set. Jason says Oklahoma and 2x2, no smaller, and yes, steel. All right. Oh, so we're talking about wrought iron, maybe. So in Oklahoma, in 2x2, no smaller, and yes, steel. Okay. Thank you for spelling that. For spelling it. Well, all right. Everyone calls it somewhere else. So we're talking about wrought iron. I've seen it in specifications spelled ROT, wrought iron. So no one has it. There's no consistent way that this is spelled. William Foster, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Saw William and his family first time, I think, was Springfield, right? From Flippin, Arkansas. Flippin? Yep. Flippin, Arkansas. I'm second. Yeah, Flippin. Because the other venture, it's Flippin, Arkansas. So flip the chart. Excellent point. We're flipping everything. Okay, well, it said it right there. I didn't even have to go back and forth in my head. William, welcome. So saw him first time in Springfield, then again in Nashville just recently, a few weeks ago for Sand Steel University. Matt said, you nailed it. Upside down triangle. It has to be. It absolutely has to be. And that's the way it works best. Ken says, we are figuring it out, man. And we got lucky and got connected with some of the absolute best in the industry somehow, including yourself. Well, we're all figuring it out. Like, that's the thing but I'm glad to have you on our Dream Team Board of Advisors. That's what we should call it. The Dream Team Board of Advisors. There we go. Let's see. True Seeker says, sounds like you need Ashley Roth as your travel agent. I hear Caleb is all nonstop. Well, yeah, but Caleb gets to go out of Nashville. Like, Nashville flies a lot of places directly, more than Springfield, Missouri. Springfield, Missouri, we go to Atlanta, Charlotte, Dallas, and Chicago direct. Like, those are the hubs we go to. Charlotte is a great town. I'm not going to the airport anymore. They got rocking chairs, so that's nice. But anyway, it takes forever to walk anywhere there. So Project Metal Music, what is up? Project Metal Music is over in the UK. Welcome. Glad to have you here. All right, guys, we're an hour and a half into this broadcast. We got an hour left to go. Drop your comments, questions, concerns, etc. in the comments below. We got a little bit of everybody here today. Got some UK fellas. Project Metal Music saying hello to all you guys too. We got some Ozark Fence team members here. Man, that jacks me up. I'm so glad you guys are here on a Saturday. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Actually, and I'm gonna miss you guys. Like, legitimately, I don't know how it sounds, but legitimately, I miss not being here because I get to see you guys, get to participate in your guys' wins. Like, these 101 panels, I didn't have anything to do with them. But when Matt popped in and said, hey, 101 in a week, that made me proud. So anyway, I'm going to miss you guys. So, hour and a half. Comments, questions, drop them in the comments below. If you guys haven't liked this or some of you are hearting this. Does it tell me who? Let me see. It says, there we go. William. Taylor Lutt. Thank you, Taylor, so much. Wifey is here or was here. Dan Wheeler and Cannon Johnson all gave this a heart. You, ladies and gentlemen, are the best. Thank you very much. We also have, I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to start calling out people that like it. So, because that's the kind of participation that we're encouraging. William, Alan McIntosh, welcome, Alan. Jason Inslee, welcome. Actually, I say welcome. We just talked about you. Anyway, about the hat. Stay Still Experts is here. Lee Coatney, Defense Industry Podcast. Let's see, is it going to let me? It's not going to let me scroll down and see more. Uh-oh. Our plan just came undone. Anyway, if you guys haven't liked it yet, please do that. It helps with the output of the show. That's not the right word. What are we saying? The organic exposure. There's the term we're looking for the show. It really helps. If you guys haven't subscribed and liked the Facebook page, please do. It helps a lot. We're trying for every hour and a half, so 2 to 3 times. I want to remind you guys that this live is sponsored by, there we go. I'm getting better at this, pointing with the opposite hand that I'm seeing right here on the screen. Sponsored by Stand Still Experts. Legitimately really good people. Legitimately really good product. I like it from a health and safety standpoint. If you guys use other stains in the market, you would notice a distinct smell, and that makes me a little bit nervous when we're talking about the health and safety of our team members, specifically their lungs. So really good stuff right there, Stand Still Experts. They are linked in the description below or the first comment, depending on where you're watching. Please check them out. Tell them Joe sent you. Matt said, just watch the D&J video on feathered pickets and kickboards. Pretty intriguing. I know, right? So if you guys don't follow D&J projects, you should. There's some guys out of Nottingham. They're doing incredibly good content, fencing content over in the UK. My dream is that one day I jump on a plane and go see those guys. I want to see this in person. So the feather edge pickets, my understanding is it's, I don't know. I'm going to try to describe this with my hands, and I'm going to get it wrong. But so they take a whole picket. This is going to be, nope, that's a bad description. I don't know. They take a whole, all right. I'm going to draw this out for you guys. Got to get some white paper. All right. They take a whole picket. I'm sure this is riveting video content right now. They take the whole picket. This is a top-down view, and they basically cut it in half. Come on, focus. Focus. There we go. They take the whole picket and they cut it in half. That is basically a feather edge picket. And they take one picket and they turn it into 2 pickets. Something to think about when pickets are getting wildly expensive. But by doing the feather edge picket, focus. There we go. You've got a skinny edge and a fat edge so that you can overlap these things and not just double the thickness of that fence. There's something to these feather edge pickets. Now, I've looked them up here. They're not a thing in the States, or at least that I could find. There might be a custom mill somewhere that is making these feather edge pickets. I haven't found them. I think it's incredibly intriguing. They overlap them. It's really solid look. It's complete privacy, right? So as these things shrink, since they're overlapped, they're still overlapping. Right? There's still total privacy. There's something to it. And kickboards. So you see kickboards a little bit down in Texas. Now, I'm sure Matt was cringing a little bit because he saw a concrete post and concrete kickboards or gravel boards and is like, Joe's going to get an idea. And all of a sudden, we're going to be making concrete posts and gravel boards. Fear not, Matt. Fear not. I did have that idea for about 30 seconds. And I was like, those things probably weigh a freaking ton. So not manufacturing those yet, I guess we should say. Never say never. But yeah, I'm sure Matt watched it. He's like, Joe's going to get this idea, and we're going to be making concrete posts and gravel boards next week. I mean, kind of guy Matt is, though, Matt would be like, okay, all right, I'll get the guys and we'll figure it out. We'll need some equipment. We'll need to watch a few more videos, but we could probably do that. It's the kind of guy Matt is. Matt, thank you. So if you guys don't watch D&J projects, you absolutely should. They're in like the family of fence, the fence fam, the YouTube fence fam. So there's several of us making content. I want to see more. I want to see more fencing professionals on YouTube making content tomorrow. Listen, we talk about this at all the places I talk about. I've been talking about this for the last couple of years. start making video content because it allows you to interact with your audience in real time, and it gives me something to watch and learn from. It's a win-win. It's the best type of win-win. I mean, think about it. I wouldn't have gotten the opportunity to meet Cannon and Dan if not for the My Fence Life show. Wouldn't have happened. I started watching the show and then I met them. And then come to find out they watched my show. So that was even better. But I wouldn't have met them. How many other fencing professionals are there out there that we don't know are out there that we've never met before because we go to Fence Tech once a year, or if it's a pandemic year, every other year? We don't get the opportunity to meet them, right? So this comment was in one of my videos from Fence Tech. Someone said, hey, watch your shows. I tried to find you. I was at Fence Tech and I never did see you. Completely happens, right? Because, I mean, think about it. Fence Tech has thousands of people all show up. Now, and I was in all orange. You would think you couldn't miss me, but it's a sea of people in this massive place and massive room, and with all these educational rooms going on inside rooms, it's easy to do. It's easy to miss somebody. It really is. So the point is, if you guys start making content, then we can get to know each other. I would love to meet you and your company and your culture and learn from you guys, but I can't do it if you don't start making video content. Start tomorrow. Speaking of someone that needs to start making video content, because I would love to see their operation. I know other people would like to start seeing their operation. And if nothing else, then just from a cooking show. Ken Throckmorton's in the house. Tons. I don't know what tons of what, Ken. Ken, welcome. I'd watch a show about Ken. There's a saying out there. I need to think about how to say this real quick. Those of you that are in the fencing industry and know Ken know that Ken is known for cooking steaks and hamburgers and all sorted meats. So people watch video content about Ken's meats, cooking Ken's meats. That's about as far down that road as we're going on this show. We're going to get flagged for some business here, and I don't need it on the channel, but I would watch Ken. People we miss out on. That's it. Oh, tons of people we miss out on. Ken, including yourself. Yeah, I mean, so I got the opportunity to meet some people at Fence Tech. Never met them before in my life, and my legitimate thought was, how did I not know of you? How did I not know of your company? Right? Like there's some massive companies out there that are flying under the radar for most of us. Now, the more we go to the shows, the more we meet these people. But listen, there's companies that are 100+ million a year in revenue that a lot of us don't know about because they're not in our area, right? Like I'm in the Midwest. I'm not on the East Coast. I'm not on the West Coast. There's some massive operations. Actually, I say that there's a massive American Fence in Kansas City is massive. Now I knew about them because I'm in the Midwest. I've heard about them at chapter meetings and stuff like that. But you know, there's guys we need to know about, right? There's guys that we need to hear their stories. So that's actually an upcoming series on this channel. Is I've started recording guys' fence stories, and I'm sorry, Cannon and. There's some serious thought that went in this so Cannon and Dan's show is My Fence Life. This is going to be people telling their fence story. And I hope people understand that that's different, right? So I'm asking people to document their fence story because I really, really believe this is important, that if nothing else, we get to document it for future generations. I think that is important. But we also get to introduce these professionals, these leaders in our organizations, these leaders in our industry to others in the industry. I know a lot of these guys because I see them regularly. A lot of the guys I interviewed were from my region, right? We're from kind of the Midwest. They're in the Midwest chapter of the American Fence Association. Now there's a few other interviews from guys that were outside of our region, but I got to see them in person there at Fence Tech. We're going to keep doing this, but we could do this faster if you guys would pick up the camera, and not even a camera, pick up your phone and start making content. I mean, the D&J Projects team, they use phones. They don't even use cameras. So all they do is shoot content on their phones. It's possible. And they have an incredible channel. So, I don't know. I'm on a bit of a soapbox here, but I'm passionate about getting you guys to start making video content. Darn it. Tomorrow. Mark Olson was the one that coined that phrase of Kin's Meats. So thank you, Mark Olson, because apparently that has stuck. Yeah, so Joe, we just need to do a show together. Absolutely. Line me up, brother. I'm stuck here every Saturday morning. Let's do it. Absolutely. And I'm going to email you a link that gets you on the show schedule, because I think I think people need to hear these stories, because everyone has a unique perspective on whatever hurdles they're having, whatever problems they're facing in the company, how they overcame them. But one thing though that we're already learning through the use of technology is a lot of our struggles are the same. I mean, different but similar, right? Digging conditions. We already talked about driving versus setting, right? So digging conditions are going to be different, but they're going to be similar, because even the guys that have incredibly good dirt still deal with roots, right? Now, our roots are wrapped around rocks, which makes it incredibly hard. Anyway, I'm just saying we all got problems, and we all have solutions to those problems. We should all share these. Cannon, I'm sending you a link after this. April 2nd or April 11th. Let's line it up live. All right, let's look at my calendar right now. April the 2nd, or what'd you say? Or April 11th is a Monday. So probably won't do that. But actually, so the only Saturday I'm not available is the 23rd of April. We've got an HBA home show. Finally having those again. I just want to make sure there's not a convention anywhere, because that's a thing. Let's see. April 2nd, man. I'm going to put it in my calendar right now. Let me edit my current live with Cannon. You, sir, are now in the calendar for April the 2nd. I will send you the link. Save for this event only. Yes. Joe Everest, live with Cannon. I don't know how this is going to show. Focus. I'm a fence. Oh, and I locked it. I'm a fence guy doing technology stuff, right? It's going to show. It's also got a safety. It's probably not going to show because it's got a safety screen. Yeah, there he goes. Joe Everest, live with Cannon. Booked. I'll send you the link. April 2nd, done. Boom. April 30. Let me see. Isn't that fool's? Wednesday? All right. So April 30, Ken, I'm gonna have to double check. So one thing I'm wanting to do is have Caleb on once a month, because he sponsors the show. I want to talk about staying, and typically we've been talking about the last Saturday of the month, but Ken, I will also be sending you a scheduling link. That way you can just see what Saturdays are available and schedule a time. But if we could just do this whole thing live. Caleb, if you're watching right now, if you could comment if you are available on April the 23rd is the home show. April the 16th or the 9th, or the 16th. 9th, well, there's anyway. I've got something, but it's in the evening. So April 9th or 16th. If Caleb, if you are available, then can come on the 30th. I'm sure this is riveting content for all of you out there that aren't in the middle of this discussion, but yeah, that's the new trend. Schedule a Joe live. Let's just at the 1 hour 30 mark, we'll just plan on scheduling people live on the show. But no, it makes it more fun for me on these shows to have you guys, to have guests live. I mean, it helps this conversation go, right? It gives me a different train of thought to go down. Because I'll be honest with you, right now I'm sitting here in an empty room staring at a screen that has a picture. You guys can't see it, but it has a picture of me on it. So, it's me talking to myself here in the room, and you guys are watching. But anyway, so having live guests on, I always like it. I think the content's better when I have a guest on, because we can have conversations and see where the rabbit holes take us. We go down some rabbit holes. Let me tell you. Last week, Caleb was on the show, and we were talking about NFTs and Metaverse. This is some big brain stuff here, and I'm in for it. Like anyway, we can all right, let's go down this again because I want so Dan Wheeler, Fence Industry Podcast, watch it, subscribe to it. I can never get my hat right. I'm a hat guy. I love wearing hats. Can't get it right. All right, I think that's right. Anyway, um, Dan has this thing in one of his podcasts I was listening to is visualization. There's a term for it, but visualization. If you can picture it and you can see yourself doing it, you can will it into existence, basically. So, um, NFTs, Metaverse, Web3 is kind of the future of technology, right? So, I mean, Facebook obviously has kind of they're wanting to take the lead on this. Now, Facebook, there's a lot of people that have trust issues with Facebook, probably rightly so, but they've rebranded themselves Meta. Now, the Metaverse is this thought. Well, it's not even a thought. It is a thing. It is a virtual. I don't even. I'm a fence guy trying to describe technology stuff, which is even more dangerous than me trying to do technology. But it's a virtual world, right? The metaverse. Now, Facebook rebranding themselves Meta makes it seem like Metaverse is the project of what was formerly known as Facebook, but it's not. Metaverse is there's Sandbox, there's a lot of other metaverse type projects out there. All right. So train of thought. Where are we going with this? In fencing, we were talking about pricing, right? How long it takes for price increases, or like theoretically in La Land price decreases, which is a laughable thought in itself. But price increases, it could take a week or weeks plural to get from manufacturer down to end user, right? Like us as a fence professional, we're one step inward from the one step towards the manufacturer from the client. Then you've got wholesalers, then you've got brokers sometimes, then you have the manufacturer. There's several steps involved, and the price increase takes a little while to trickle down. So, but in so okay, so in the whole metaverse, Web3, cryptocurrency, NFT conversation, there's blockchain. And blockchain is simply a transparent ledger of transactions. It's a transparent transaction ledger. Anybody can see if I transfer some crypto to Canon, everyone can see it because it's live on the blockchain, whichever blockchain we're talking about. It's live on there. I can see. Now, I'd have to know my ID and Canon's ID, but if I knew my ID, I do know my ID, but if I knew Canon's ID, I could click on his ID and it would show me all of his transactions. It's a transparent ledger. So there's some companies thinking about this. They're like the UPS and FedExes of the world in transportation are thinking about this in terms of, so you can already track your package, right? But it's through their website. Sometimes it's clunky because it depends on scans or missed scans or whatever. The blockchain, it's all transparent, but that's the idea, is that you can see real time, you can track your progress through this thing. So what if we applied this to pricing? Right now, it would take a fair amount of trust from the manufacturers, but the supplier, it has to be connected from end to end. But the supplier issues a price increase. They say our cost of this went up 5%. Gets to the broker. The broker says, well, now this is where this is going to fall off the rails because everyone has to be transparent. A lot of people don't want to share their markup, but they'd have to say, my markup is X, 75%, 100%. I think some people would be surprised at the markups that are seen on the broker and wholesale side, but my markup is 75%. Let's use a number. So X plus 75% is now passed on to the wholesaler. Wholesaler says my markup is 75%. it's applied to, X plus 25% is Y. Y gets to the wholesale plus 25%, gets passed on to the fence contractor. But the fence contractor in real time can see this pricing. I mean, this happens in nanoseconds, right? So I get an alert on my phone or wherever that says there's a price increase effective immediately. Your price is now Y plus 25% would be Z. X plus 25% is Y. Y plus 25% is Z. Your price is now Z for this thing. Real time. And I could have a real time ticker on, hey, these are my suppliers that I'm plugged into. Right now, the price of a 2.5-inch tension band is this much from each one of these, real time. The selling point for wholesalers is they're done doing bids, right? They're done having to work up pricing because you can see real time what the price is. Now, there are wholesalers out there that are trying to do this with their websites, right? So we deal with a wholesaler called retailer wholesaler called Fence Brokers. They have a website which real time you can see what the cost of all the things is. But it's a website, right? So it's a little slow, and they have to go in there and update their pricing. So what I'm proposing is in the blockchain, it's all done automatically. You would connect with your wholesaler, you would add a markup. You could even then show it to your customers. That gets a little scary, but you could broadcast this. This is my price of this thing today. And it would automatically update. Or you have a piece of, if you don't want to show your customers, then you have a piece of software that then calls out through web calls to the blockchain to pull pricing real time. Your pricing would be up to the second accurate. I'm in for it. I think this is incredible. Now, like I said, this is big brain stuff. So I don't know. But Caleb and I went on this rant. This is a whole long discussion that started when Caleb was a guest. And this discussion probably wouldn't have happened. This idea wouldn't have formed if Caleb hadn't been a guest. So this very long story is all to say I would love to have more guests on this show so that we could try to work through different ideas of how to improve the industry. That's what we're here for, right? Is we're trying to alleviate pain points and make the industry better through group ideas. That was a really long answer. It was a rabbit hole. Always great content, whether you or a guest. Thank you, Ken. I appreciate that. Project Man Music. I know the feeling, Joe, when I go live on YouTube and I don't have any guests on. It's a bit of some, it's like white noise out there, right? The content's not going to get made if I don't sit here and talk. So, yeah, for better or worse. I tried to get a drink that was orange. Yeah, it's showing up pretty orange on the screen. One of the healthy teas. They call them healthy. I don't know that they're healthy teas. I think they taste delicious, and they've got to be better than soda. Matt says, I think technology is a one-way street, and we won't be turning around one. Yeah, absolutely. One day soon, we'll probably be there. I couldn't agree more. What I think is kind of exciting is that we might have a chance to influence that direction. So here's what I mean. A lot of times in any industry, not just fencing, but we see it in fencing, innovations are passed down from suppliers, wholesalers, down to contractors, right? You don't typically see a lot of innovations from the contractor up the supply chain because the contractor, we are dependent on the wholesalers and manufacturers. When we get into technology, it's kind of a blue ocean, right? It's kind of a ship in the middle of this ocean. You're the only ship in sight, right? So you've got all the room to maneuver here. So this is kind of what I'm thinking is that we could have the ability to shape this thing in a way that really benefits contractors, but it can also benefit wholesalers and manufacturers at the same time. Like there's not a reason that it can only be a one-way street, right? We can come up with a win-win-win scenario. Thank you, Sean King. That benefits everyone. Like it doesn't always have to benefit one party. So I think that's what we're up to. And man, you can apply this to so many wild things, right? So I don't know. My head starts getting twisted in pretzels when I think of how to apply blockchain technology to a contractor's world, right? So we've got automations. Dan Blanc is the king of automations. He probably does it better than I do, but we've got automations that when we send out for a locate ticket and we get a ticket number back, it automatically generates an email to the client that says, you submitted your property for locates. You'll likely see them in the next 2 to 3 days. Your ticket number is X. Should you have any questions about the locate itself? But what about if you just assign their project a blockchain code, and then they would just automatically get any updates that have to do with that, right? So, okay, so let's think about this a little bit more. So we know that we've got some materials that landed in our lot for the client. As soon as we check them in and tag them with the project number, the client automatically gets notified your materials are on the lot. All right, back that up again. Your materials are on order. Now, the client, because all of this ledger is fully transparent, the client can track their shipment. The client can see that this order was placed with. Now, transparency scares people, right? All right. They can see that their material order was placed with, let's say, Stevens Pipe and Steel. Now, I say people get scared about transparency because then some people are going to say, well, what if they go around you to your manufacturers? If they do, they probably weren't your ideal client anyway, right? And a lot of these suppliers aren't taking on new clients anyway. They could be updated in real time for their project, right? It would alleviate phone calls in to see where they are on the schedule because they're getting real-time updates. All right, so what if Stevens had this plugged in and Stevens says your order is in manufacturing? So we could see it's in manufacturing, but the customer could see it's also in manufacturing. Your order is on a truck. The truck is scheduled for this delivery. Matt's guys check it in, or Matt checks it in. So now they see, okay, well, now it's gone from being produced to being on a truck to being at Ozark Fences lot. It's now on schedule to be at my place. Guys, I'm telling you, there's something here. Now, like I say, it makes my brain hurt thinking about it, but I think that's a decent use case for applying blockchain technology to fencing. There's a lot of work there. There is a massive amount of work there, and there has to be adoption, right? So there has to be adoption from the wholesalers, from the manufacturers, all the way up and down the supply chain. But if we could do it, I think it could be freaking amazing, right? So manufacturers manufacturers are on the wholesalers if they didn't get calls for bids anymore. How many people would that free up, right? I mean, how many inside sales associates does each branch of every wholesaler have that all they do is churn out estimates and reprice estimates? I would dare say they probably have more hours in repricing projects than they do pricing new projects because you got to check pricing every week now. So if you've got a commercial project that drags out for a month or two, you might reprice that thing 2 or 3 times. So this would solve for that, right? On the contractor's end, on our end, it would be able to transparently show your clients in real time the status of their project. So now all of a sudden calls into the office are also reduced drastically. So I don't know. All this came because Caleb came on the show. So I'm here for some guests. If you want to come on the show, reach out to me. So far, Cannon, April the 2nd. Is that what we said? Sure. Whatever that Saturday. Yep. April the 2nd. And then Ken tentatively on April the 30th, pending talking to Caleb. So if anyone knows Caleb or Ashley, if they're watching, you let me know if that works for you. Technology is coming, guys. It really is. It has to come. That's the way we're headed. Matt said it best. It's a one-way street. You can't turn around and go back. We are gung-ho into this thing. So let's talk about new business venture. Let's take a drink real quick. The more you talk, the drier your throat gets, I felt. All right, new business venture. So we're going to be manufacturing some of our own product that I don't want to be like, this isn't me being cagey because it's good for views or whatever. This is me just like legitimately not wanting to burn bridges that don't need to be burnt until they need. Not trying to burn bridges here. but so we're going to start manufacturing some of what we use on a daily basis, both here at our shop and for our clients, because supply chain is an issue, right? And I think that we have the opportunity to solve that issue a little bit. And I've talked to some of the manufacturers, some of the national manufacturers in this game at FinTech, and they kind of agree with me. There's like, yeah, there is room in the pool for more, right? We're not a closed club here, but so we're going to start manufacturing. We got the green light, and actually, so this might be news for this already is news for Matt and John because this just came down yesterday, and yesterday was a wildly busy day. But we got the verbal go ahead on the building that we've been looking at. This is all kind of like everything's contingent on everything, right? Everything's connected, but we were looking at a facility that was currently occupied. Here's the problem in Springfield: there are no buildings available. So we were looking for a building between 6 and 10,000 square foot that was at least half warehouse, preferably 3/4 warehouse. We don't need a lot of office space. That had a shipping dock, that had also had a ground level door. Um, we had some requirements, right? Needed to be concrete, needed to have 3-phase electrical. Actually, so this facility doesn't have 3-phase electrical. I'll have to bring that in. Anyway, there's none out there. So in Springfield, Southwest Missouri, Greene County, I was searching, not even Greene County, Southwest Missouri, because I was searching Greene County, Christian County, Stone County, it was Berry County, searching them all. Warehouses, industrial warehouses that could be used for this purpose were either less than 2,000 square foot, so they were these little micro units, or they were more than 80,000 square foot, like in an industrial center. We're not looking for 80,000 square foot right now. So there wasn't out there. So I put a call out on Facebook. It's like, hey, who do you know that has space that's between 6 and 10,000 square foot that's not currently listed? I need to talk to those people. Well, come to find out, so Shalane Sloth, a girl I knew from high school, actually, I took her to her prom. She was a year behind me in school, but she said, "Hey, my dad probably has a facility right now that he's looking to fill. Let me know." So her dad Kevin called me. Yeah, he called me first. So he called me and said, "Hey, here's the situation. I have a space that's 6,000 square foot. Half of it's warehouse. It has a loading dock. It has a ground door. Here's the thing: I have a tenant in there right now, and they have a long-term lease. So they had a 20-year lease. It was a stable business, but 20-year lease. But the thing is, they were being acquired. So they were getting bought out. And once they got acquired, the company that was acquiring them already had space. They didn't need an additional space. So they were kind of concerned about having to buy out their lease. There was a hefty buyout in there. So they were trying to figure out what that looks like. Well, Kevin had said, hey, so Kevin said, I think I've got a guy that's wanting the space. If this works out, then I'll let you out of the lease and he can just start a new lease. I'm not taking over a 20-year lease. But so we had to wait for this company's board to approve the buyout or the purchase agreement, whatever you want to call it, before we could get the green light on the building. That call came yesterday. They had a board meeting Thursday. The board approved the purchase agreement, which means that they're leaving in the next few months. So, yeah, we've got the verbal green light on the building. Big first step. We weren't going to order the equipment. We weren't going to order supplies. I wasn't going to move forward with anything until we found a facility, right? Because don't get your cart ahead of the horse sort of thing. If we didn't have a facility, we don't have room here for this equipment I'm talking about. And like I said, we're filling this place up with wire and pipe and fittings. We don't have room for the material for this stuff. So now we can start moving forward. So we have so update, I guess, would be now we have the facility. We have the verbal on the facility. We'll have a lease in the next few weeks. They're still working on timelines on when they need to move out. But right now it's looking like July, which works out because the machinery, come to find out, now has a 30-week lead time. Wild. 30 weeks. Do the math on that. That's a few months. So building verbal. So now we've got the rebid on the equipment, which is why we figured out the equipment price went up a little bit. 30 weeks out. We can also start bringing in material. So once the material it's like anything, right? Material's back ordered. No one has any of the material on in their lots in their warehouses. So we can start bringing in material. We need to buy some ancillary equipment. So just some associated equipment. We can start moving forward on that. Fantastic. Yeah, we can start the ball rolling. And part of this is me going out to California. That this is all kind of falling into place while Sarah and I are at this conference in San Diego. The reason we're going to LA is because this manufacturer is east of LA. So we're going to go up there and meet them and shake hands and probably hand them a significant check so that they can start putting this whole thing together. So yeah. So awesome news, all because Joe had another crazy idea. Sometimes these things pan out. Now, my team will tell you, sometimes they don't. Like it is what it is. My team, God bless them, has like more patience than anybody I know because like they bear with me through a lot of these. Like, you want to do what? All right, and Matt's got faith in where if I tell him an idea, he'd be like, oh, okay, I think we could probably make that work. But this time it's working out so far. We're lining up. We're going to be making a lot of our own stuff, right? We're making this for ourselves a lot, but we'll also have some excess production, and we're lining up clients for that as well. So I had a conversation last night or yesterday with one of these companies that basically said, we'll buy what you can produce because we're kind of tired of wait times, right? So I think that's the problem. One of the problems we're going to be able to solve is wait time. I think we're going to be, for the first little bit anyway, we're going to be more responsive than the industry. And we're also we're also going to focus on an area of the industry that a lot of the main manufacturers can't, or they can, but they're going to have to take away from their core business to try to do it, and they're not interested in that. Right now, it is everyone focusing on their core business, which that's fine because we can make this side item also a core. We can make that our core business. That could be our core business. If someone wants the standard thing, they've got some great options in the national, on the national market. But if they want this little odd thing, that's our main thing. So anyway, I understand this all sounds like incredibly cagey, and it probably doesn't need. I want to get ducks in a row before we like really get into this. But so, all right, recap. The lawyer we're registered with the state of Missouri, so I'm sure with a little bit of digging you can figure that out. Registered with the state, the lawyer has the operating agreement. Like, we're a legit company. Insurance agent. So insurance agent was by last week. We've got the insurance figured out. How many people we got? This okay. So Ken says, "You gonna tell us what it is?" Let me work through this in my mind real quick. I think we probably can. So as I'm talking this through, I'm like, well, like anyone can probably figure this out. Michael, thank you. All right, let's take it. So you could find it with the Secretary of State, right? So, so this is probably getting a little bit too far in the weeds, but technically our registered agent is our lawyer. So maybe it would take a little bit of work, but if you were to look, you would find a company called Ozark Wireworks, which is what we're registered as. And it probably wouldn't be that hard because I think, anyway, Ozark Wireworks is the name of the company. So that probably tells you that we're going to be making wire. We're going to be manufacturing chain link wire. And the reason I don't want to burn bridges is we still need to buy chain link wire, right? So I was talking to another independent manufacturer who had kind of warned me about coming out too early with the news because some of the manufacturers stopped selling, some of the wholesalers stopped selling to them because they said, hey, you're now our competition and we don't want to sell to our competition, which, listen, we talk about this on the contractor side, right? Is competition isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? Like everyone views competition as me versus you. Competition can be me me with you, me helping you, right? Like friendly competition. Here's how I liken it to a lot of professional sports. So, okay, we're talking about football earlier, right? At the end of the Super Bowl, these two teams were competitors for whatever, 2 hours, I don't know, however long the game was. They fought it out hard. It was a hard fought battle. At the end of it, one team won and one team lost. At the end of that, they went shook hands. The coaches shook hands. The quarterback shook hands. The teammate, the opposite teams were giving hugs. They're trading jerseys. That's what I view this as, right? So it was a competition, but it's a friendly competition. At the end of the day, everyone shook hands and said, "Good game." I think this is the same thing. And I tell you what, the spammers are out posting nonsense links in the chat. Sorry about that. That's how I view this, right? But they lost a few wholesalers because they said, "Hey, if you're manufacturing chain link wire, then you're now our competition, and we're not going to sell to you." So that's why I'd been cagey about this. But like I said, the more I think this through, it's already registered with Secretary of State. It's probably not a very well hidden secret anyway. So we're going to be manufacturing chain link wire because chain link wire. So this illustration made more sense when we got bids, they were 20 weeks out on making machinery, and it was 18 weeks to get a truckload. We had just been putting bids out on truckloads of wire, and it was 18 weeks to get a truckload of wire, or 20 weeks to get the machine to make it. All right, we'll buy the machine to make it, right? And we'll just make our own. So the thing we're going to be making that's a little bit different is we're going to be making gate wire. Now that I'm saying this, we might have already talked about this on the show. I don't know. Anyway, we're going to be making gate wire. So actually, I know we talked about this on the show because I saw there were some comments about it. So gate wire is typically wire that's 2 inches shorter than the gate measurement. So gates are typically a couple inches shorter than the fence because they need room to move, right? They need room to swing. So on a 6-foot fence, the gates are typically 70 inches. Well, if you got 72-inch wire, you're going to be cutting 1 diamond or so off of this wire. And yeah, roughly, sometimes it's half a diamond. Anyway, you're going to be cutting this wire down. So what if we could just make wire that was already the right size? Rather than having to cut it down, you just build your gates with it. And Matt could tell you, me and Matt have had this conversation, it could save a significant amount of time, right? From not having to cut these things down. So now when we make panels, we can make panels that are actually correct size, so we're not having to cut wire down. But if we're making gates, specifically cantilever gates take a different wire altogether because the wire has to fit inside the rails and all this. Yeah, we can make the correct size wire for that application. So rather than 70-inch wire, it'd be 70. Rather than 60-inch wire, it'd be 58. Instead of 48, it'd be 40. Everyone can do math. 2 inches less than whatever you use. That's going to be our core business, I really believe. Now, a lot of this is educated guessing, right? It's guessing, but I've got a pretty good idea because Matt and I have had these conversations. Matt Warner up in Nebraska and I have had conversations. He makes a lot of gates. I was like, hey, let me bounce some ideas, like some pain points we have. Do you also have them? Just as someone that builds a lot more stuff than us, right? So he's like, yep, same problems. I think you're onto something here. Now, are we going to make common sizes? Sure. I mean, this machine, so the machine we're talking about is Burgundy, makes these wire weaving machines, and they'll do anything. We're getting a 12-foot machine. We're ordering a 12-foot machine, and it'll make anything from 2-inch to 12-foot. So if you wanted a 2-foot piece of wire, so we had this come up. This was a month ago or so. So Candace in our front office, she primarily handles the retail wholesale side of the business, the sales portion. So she had a client they were putting fence on top of a bridge or something, and it had called for 2-foot wire, 2-foot tall wire. Well, good luck finding 2-foot tall wire. I know some guys that do. So another guy that does manufacturing is Brenton Manufacturing. You guys have seen a few videos with me interviewing Briston. It's possible he can make us some 2-foot wire, but it's a matter of shutting the machine down, right? And changing it over for 2 foot and all this. And he's getting busy too. I mean, that's the thing is he's got a lot of business in kind of standard sizes. So yeah, but if we had our own wire weaving machine, we could do 2-foot wire. We had, so Matt was involved in kind of a predicament we were in. We needed 9-foot wire. We are making some panels for a client. Matt can probably tell you better than I can. I think it was for the chicken. We were making some panels for some chicken coops and for some inside of some chicken coops to keep the chickens out of some sort of storage area. But it's 9-foot, so we need to order 9-foot wire. Took forever to get 9-foot wire in because it's kind of an oddball sized wire, right? But if we could make our own wire, it would be as simple as Candace saying, "Hey, Joe, we need, whatever, 400 or 500 feet of 9-foot wire. Could you make it?" Yep, you bet. We'll switch the machine over and we'll run 9-foot wire for a little bit. It's going to give us some options, primarily for ourselves, but we have some friends in the industry that are needing chain link wire. And if friends are good for anything, it's taking care of friends, right? So this was one of the conversations I'd had yesterday. It was just like, hey, touching base, just gauging temperature here, because this is a lot easier to talk about before the rubber meets the road, before we sign leases, these machines are hundreds of thousands of dollars, several hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I'm getting ready to outlay some money here. I don't need, but it'd make me feel better if I had a little bit of reassurance. So this person said, "Hey, Joe, we're friends. And one thing friends do is they take care of friends. So you tell me how much you have available and what you need to get paid for it, and we're in." And I'm telling you what, that is a weight off the shoulders, right? Saying that now, and the understanding is it's going to be a fair price, right? We're going to figure out what our manufacturing costs are, what our overhead is, what margins we need to get by for the next little bit. And that'll be the number, right? And anyway, so it's a go. So the building's lined up. We're going to have, so these machines need 3-phase power, need 463 phase, full power. So we're going to, a cousin of mine owns an electrical contractor, one of the main ones in town. So he's going to come out, view the building, give me a bid on what it's going to cost to upgrade the electricity. Probably going to be $30,000-$40,000 to upgrade the power so that these machines can operate at peak efficiency. Now, they sell, I'm a fence guy and I'm going to use electrical terms. They sell like a transformer that you can hook regular power into, and it will modulate it into like a 3-phase type situation. And it's not ideal. It will work, but the machines won't work at peak efficiency because they're used to seeing standard 3-phase power. Now they're working with some sort of modulated power that's not the same, similar, not the same. Anyway, if we're doing this, we're just going to do it right from the beginning. So bring in full 3-phase power. Now, the thing too is we'll get wholesale pricing on electricity, a little bit better of a rate. Now, Southwest Missouri already has really good electric rates anyway, so it's not going to get a lot better, but it will get somewhat better. Yeah, so we got to get power still. So, all right, so things on the checklist: get power, get an order in the machinery. Sarah and I are going to take care of that while we're in California. We need to start now. Here's going to be the bottleneck. The next bottleneck is getting in the raw material, the strand. So everyone is making wire as fast as they can right now. Most of the main manufacturers are making as fast as they can, which means the wholesalers of this strand, and some of them are manufacturers, aren't taking on new clients. This sounds familiar to some of us fencers because actually this conversation was going on last night on Facebook about some wholesalers not taking on new accounts. They just don't have the capacity. Well, that's going on at the wholesale level of strand as well. So I'd put calls out to, I think, 4 of the main manufacturers / wholesalers of this strand. One of them got back to me, incredibly high price, but they were the only one. Actually, no, that's not fair. Another one got back to me to tell me that they were much too busy, but they wanted to give us a courtesy call instead of just blowing us off, which, all right. I mean, that's better than not calling us back, which is what the other 2 did. That's going to be the next pinch point. But Now this I still do have to be cagey about. We've got kind of we've got another supplier that's in the works on this, and that's all I'm going to say about that. So we might have a solution coming down the line for that. But we had to line that up. We got to get that strand coming in here. We also have to have, there's other equipment that goes into this manufacturer. There's what they call a butt welder. So it'll take two pieces of strand, place them together, then weld them. That way the machine is just pulling one continuous strand. You don't have to reweave wire into this thing. It can weld 9 gauge to 11 gauge, 11 gauge to 11 and a half, 9 to 11 and a half, whatever. So you can pull through your new wire and not have to rerun the whole thing. Saves a lot of time. Also, when you get to the end of a coil of 9 gauge strand, you can weld another coil of 9 gauge. You can keep on running with it. So anyway, yeah. So we're going to have to butt welder. Forklift is going to be a necessity. The facility doesn't have any outside storage, but it has room for outside storage. So we're going to build some fence. We know some people that build fence. We're going to build some fence around the storage area so we can store the wire outside until it's ready to be sent off. Yeah, that's kind of what's on our list so far. And we need a business license. We need to get with the city of Springfield and to get a business license. We recently went through that on the fence side, and that's a whole story that, anyway, apparently the building that we're in never really had an occupancy permit, which is confusing because there's been businesses operating here since the early 50s. So that's confusing. Anyway, we're going to have to go back to the city and hope they don't just like lock the doors we're coming in, get a business permit for Ozark Wireworks and get the ball rolling. So much like Mark Olson, Successful Contractor channel on YouTube, I'm going to be showing kind of the behind the scenes on what that looks like on starting that up. Also, I want to be completely transparent about the pricing discussion, right? And we'll have to tiptoe on that line because public discussions of pricing is at a minimum frowned upon and at the maximum illegal, right? So we're going to tiptoe around that. But I think it'd be interesting to see just what the numbers look like in that industry. I think we can find some savings for some folks, but we'll see. We'll see. If nothing else, we'll discuss it on the show. And so that's part of this whole change of format on like a behind the scenes look, having a videographer just document this process along with me, right? And if you guys follow Gary Vaynerchuk, this probably all sounds very familiar, but having a camera at least in the room, if not recording the audio, at least in the room, showing kind of what these meetings look like, bringing the lawyer on to say, hey, when I'm wanting to organize this thing, what did we have to do, right? Like, what were the steps on organizing this company? Checking with Secretary of State, filing with Secretary of State, filing the organizational documents. What does that whole process look like? Talking to the insurance agent. What are the insurance thoughts on starting, or what are the insurance requirements for starting a policy for a new company? Now, our situation's a little different because he handles the Ozark fence policies, right? So he already knew us. It wasn't like a complete cold call into the agency, but I think he can help us with that. I want to document this all, and Ken, absolutely, I'm looking for partners I'm looking for people to partner with to work together on this because we're going to have production, right? So we're going to be making wire. We need to make wire because we're going to have, all said and done, we're going to have $500,000 in this thing to get it off the ground. That first roll of wire is going to be an expensive one, but yeah. So I halfway thought about that first roll of like, really, we're going to have training involved. We're going to have some screwed up wire coming through there. We're going to have to learn. We're going to throw a lot of wire away, but that first roll, the first, like, this is it. Perfect roll. It's going on the wall, right? We're going to just like coil it up, figure out how to mount this thing on the wall, like first roll of wire off the presses, because that's going to be like $500,000 roll, right? If we're attributing the cost to that roll of wire, it's going to be an expensive one. But no, but we're going to need to find people to partner with so that we can keep making wire and get this ship off the ground, right? So I view this like, and I view, other people have said, and I agree, that they view that, starting a business is a lot like launching a rocket to the moon, So the majority of the energy, majority of the cost is getting this thing off the ground, getting it out of orbit. It's something like 90% of the energy, 95% of the energy used on a trip to the moon is leaving the Earth's atmosphere. Is that first little bit getting off the ground, getting moving, getting the momentum, fighting gravity, getting out of the atmosphere. Once you get out into space, very little energy is used. And the return, same thing's true. It's going to be like that for this business. Getting it off the ground, there's going to be a tremendous amount of resources required to get this thing going, to get it off the ground, getting it out of the atmosphere. We'll need as many partners as we can get. So, Ken, I'll talk to you about it offline. I think I'm not sure the other person what we're talking about, but yeah, we're open to it. We'll be looking for as many partners as we can take on to get this thing off the ground, because we're going to have rent that's the bad thing here. Part of this $500,000 is we're going to be paying rent on a building that's empty for several months before this machinery even shows up. It's 30 weeks. So they said, well, at first they said the building will be available in July. Okay. That actually is perfect, because this machinery is not going to show up till August, September, October. So, if we can delay that as much as possible, that's great. Well, now they're talking about being out there earlier. So, I mean, to be fair to the landlord, I mean, he's a friend of mine's dad, but he's also the landlord. He's going to want to start getting paid as soon as we sign the lease, or as soon as we take over this space, right? So we're going to have some significant cost in this building before the machine even shows up. But anyway, I say all that to say I look forward to it. I really do. Yeah, that's it. That will be our trophy. I like that term. That will be our trophy roll on the wall. First roll ever through the presses, through the machines. I'm going to be so proud of that first roll. You're not, like Matt knows. I don't say you don't even know, but just the effort it's taken to get here has been tremendous, and I know there's going to be a day where we turn around and see how far we've come from that first roll, but we got to get there. It's a momentous occasion. So I don't want to say, so I was on a video call with the gentleman, and right behind his desk, he has a framed picture of the first truckload of material. So they do wholesale, but the first truckload of material, I'm guessing into it. It just says first load, such and such date, and a picture of a semi with this load of wire on it. I'm going to do the same thing. We're going to save the first roll. That trophy roll goes on the wall, but then first, picture of the first truckload out, and I'm going to make a really big deal about this. The people that partner with us in the beginning are going to mean a big deal. They're going to mean a great deal to us, right? And I'm going to make a big deal out of that, because I don't know, it's going to be huge. It's going to mean a lot to us. So, Ken, if that's you and this other person, if it's them, I'm going to take care of those people that take care of us, So anyway, I look forward to it. I really do. Guys, we're coming in on 2.5 hours. Where did the day go, huh? We've got a few minutes here. We got 6 or 7 minutes left. So if you guys have any questions or comments, drop them in the comments below. I'd absolutely love to hear from you. We've got time for, depending on how my rabbit trails go, following the rabbit holes, we've probably got one more conversation left in us. Or we can sign off. What else do we have going on? Oh, we haven't even talked about Sam Williams. Sam Williams is coming on the show next Saturday. So we get back from convention from California on Friday afternoon, and then Saturday morning, setting this whole thing back up, getting it all ready to go. And we're going to be live with Sam Williams, the president of the AFA. I'll say this: I'm excited with where this is going. So I was asked to serve on the strategic development committee of the AFA, of the National AFA, because everyone understands that, or at least everyone is coming to understand that there are a lot of questions that surround the AFA, there are a lot of questions that new contractors have about the AFA that no one is answering. And Sam, to his credit, said, who better to answer those questions than me, than the president of the whole organization? He goes, the answer should come from the top, because when answers aren't given, people start making up the answers, right, in their own heads. It's like, well, here's what's probably going on, and it could be totally wrong, right? So we're going to have Sam on to answer a lot of these questions. A lot of, the big thing is the difference in chapters in the association, right? You have regional chapters of the National Association, but what does that look like? Like what does that look like? How is that organized? For a long time, until I got involved in the Midwest chapter, I didn't really understand the difference between chapters and the association, what some do, what the others do. Like, what are we doing here? I don't know. Question number one for Sam. Also, I think it'd be interesting to get Sam's input. So Sam owns a wholesale company over on the East Coast too. So it'd be interesting to see his outlook on the economy near future. That question came up on the panel yesterday. Be interested to hear his input there, and really just answer your guys' questions about the AFA or just fencing in general. Obviously, any of those questions are on the table, but I think it would be good to talk about all these questions that come up about the association, right? We'll just, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, right? I want to bring these questions up to Sam as he's on the show, but I am so stoked. I mean, if you guys follow the show, we've had Tony Thornton, the outgoing executive director. Do you say that? So Tony's retiring from the AFA or leaving and he's not retiring. He's got some plans made for the future. But this is his last month there. First of the month, he's starting up his new endeavor, which I will likely have him on to introduce that endeavor to you guys himself. So the search is currently on for a new executive director. They put out the job description. The job posting is out now. The National Board put out that 2 weeks ago, week ago, something like right after FinSec. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. Sam will be on. So if you guys follow the show, I've interviewed Tony from the executive director's position, but I'd also like to ask Sam a few questions from the president's role. So that's another thing. A lot of people, myself included, didn't understand is the difference between the president and the executive director. What does each person do? One is a volunteer, one is an employed position. What is the difference? What do the job duties look like from one to the other? I'm excited to have Sam on. And as you guys will come to know, Sam is an open book. And that's probably the most exciting part to me is he's very straightforward. He'll give you the answer that you ask for to answer your question directly, or he'll say, I don't know the answer, but I will find that out and bring it to you. He said that to me a couple of times. The answer is coming pretty quick after. So I'm excited for that conversation. And this will be a regular thing. I will have Sam on probably quarterly, and that kind of makes sense to me, regularly, to answer any of your guys' questions and to bring news about the association. What's new on the AFA's radar? What's new for membership? That sort of thing. I'm telling you, on the strategic development committee, the committee I'm on, we've got some neat ideas about the future for what to bring the membership of the AFA. I'm excited about it. I think you guys should be excited about it as well. Sam is coming on next Saturday, is what I was saying. Miguel, welcome. Miguel Cardona in Lorain, Ohio. What's up, family? Hello, Miguel. Welcome, Fence fam. Gregory's Fence. So, Mitch, we've been making vinyl coated wire as well. We will. So we have a supplier of that lined up, vinyl coated, and they can make any color. It's wild seeing the colors they make. They did one that was like a safety yellow and electric red. Wild. They can make orange. You better believe we're coming up with a few creative ways of how to use orange wire. But yeah, so vinyl coated wire, we actually have a supplier of that right now lined up. So, yep, we will be making that as well. Nathan Downs is with us. Sam, you better believe it. We're gonna be talking to Sam next week. Matt says, awesome show. Thanks, Joe. Have a good trip next week. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate you. I appreciate the team just firing on all cylinders here. You guys, we talk about teamwork, right? We talk about the team members in general. Without a team that's firing on all cylinders, I wouldn't be able to go do these trainings, right? I wouldn't feel comfortable leaving for a week at a time, not knowing what's going on. The team we have here, I'd say the team we have here lets me leave, and I know full well everything's going to get taken care of next week. There's no questions. If there are questions, they'll get directed to my cell phone, but my cell phone rarely rings 2 or 3 times in a week, and it's so anyway. I said it. Say, Matt, thank you, guys out there. If you guys can get a team together that you trust wholeheartedly, that's all moving in the same direction, it'd be so much better for it. We are at 2 hours and 30 minutes on the nose. Is there an email to communicate with you personally as a mentor? Absolutely. Joe at, let me just type it in the chat. It's Joe at defenseexpert.show, but I'm going to type it in here. Joe at defense, 2 E's, expert.show. Should show up for you there. Joe at defenseexpert.show. Let's make sure that looks right. Defenseexpert.show. That double E always gets me. But yep, Joe at defenseexpert.show. Send me an email. Always love to chat with you guys. Yeah. With that, we're at 2 hours, 30 minutes. Guys, it's been great. These shows always fly by because you guys make it enjoyable to jump in and chat with you guys. I'll see you guys next week. We've got a recorded video dropping in an hour and 15 minutes at 1:45 Central. That's me doing a review of a fence repair. All right. So there's a lot of spam content going on here, but this isn't a real question. But if it were a real question, the answer is no, because no. But we're not going to ban Emily. Maybe that was legit. That was not legit. Anyway, the answer is no. Guys, until next week, I'm Joe Everest, the fence expert, reminding you that good fences make good neighbors. I'll see you next time.